Chapter 255, Power, Lord Xia, how brazen you are. After hurting my brothers, did you really think you could leave this area safely? Jian Chen had a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes as his voice grew colder. You've already killed Uncle Lu, what more do you want? The young lord looked at the 100 men surrounding him with a look of fear on his face. My father is the representative of the Xia clan, Jian Chen. If you kill me, then my Xia clan will definitely do their best to kill you. Do you really think I am afraid? You should have already known, if I am willing to kill a Xia clansman, then I am not afraid of offending your Xia clan. Jian Chen was not afraid of the Xia clan's might at all, and so his words were spoken with ease. The young lord was deathly pale and had a great amount of remorse in his heart. If he had known that Jian Chen would be this difficult to deal with, then he wouldn't have dared come in the first place. At this moment, Kai Er walked up to where Jian Chen was. Captain, the Xia clan is very strong and this is the son of the leader of the clan. If he were to die here, then the Xia clan would go berserk. Is the Xia clan truly so strong? Jian Chen asked. This was the only question that mattered to him. Kai Er spoke once more. There are 10 great saint masters within the Xia clan, and the leader of the clan himself is rumored to have made a breakthrough to become an earth saint master. Not only that, but he also has mastery over his water saint force as well as some strong battle skills. Jian Chen nodded his head. From the young lord's arrogant air and words, he had already guessed that the Xia clan had the backing of an earth saint master, but what was more important was just how many earth saint masters there were. Jian Chen looked at the young lord. Young lord, do you truly wish to leave from this place safely? Although Jian Chen's words suggested that he was willing to let the Xia clan go, his attitude was still an unyielding one, causing the young lord to be confused. If he were to have another stroke of bad luck, then he would definitely not be able to leave the area alive. After Uncle Lu had been killed in a single blow, the young lord of the Xia clan understood that Jian Chen's strength was enough for him to not fear the Xia clan. Jian Chen, our Xia clan no longer wishes for the Class 5 monster core, only that I may leave this place safely. We will even offer you a large sum of money for this. The young lord's eyes had a look of hope in them. Although he was a noble, he had lived a sheltered life and was constantly protected by everyone. He didn't have the heroic spirit that mercenaries had after experiencing life and death situations again and again. So in such a situation like this, it wasn't easy for him to maintain a calm composure. Revealing an evil smile, Jian Chen stared at the space belt on the waist of the young lord. Young lord, if you truly wish to leave from this courtyard safely, then hand over your space belt. The young lord's face changed greatly from that demand. All of the items in his space belt were of his personal property and so he was reluctant to part with it. Struggling to keep a calm composure, the young lord bit his lips and said, Fine, Jian Chen, I will hand over my space belt to you. I hope you will stay true to your word and let me leave peacefully. Naturally. Jian Chen laughed. Afterward, the young lord parted with his space belt reluctantly before demanding, I will be taking the corpse of Uncle Lu with me. Jian Chen didn't say another word and flicked the space belt around Uncle Lu's waist into his hand and threw the body to the Xia clansman. Immediately 2 of the guards caught the body carefully before slowly retreating back out of the courtyard. When the Xia clan retreated, there was no hesitation at all. In the courtyard, every member of the Flame Mercenaries looked at Jian Chen with a huge smile on their faces. This action of Jian Chen had won over everyone's hearts. Kai Er and the other 5 great saint masters came around to where Jian Chen was and spoke seriously, Captain, it can be said now that we have offended the Xia clan. This isn't a matter that they will take lying down, it would appear that we will need to prepare to fight against them in the future. Jian Chen nodded his head. Captain, since we have offended the Xia clan, why couldn't we force them to stay behind? Now that we've offended them, we should have killed them all, lowering the number of great saint masters in their clan, weakening their overall strength. Charkis asked with confusion. Absolutely not. Jian Chen shook his head. Although I've killed one of their experts, the Xia clan will definitely be mindful of my strength now. If they were to come for my life, then the Xia clan would suffer a huge lose as well. I believe the Xia clan will try to send some expendable person to test me so that they won't lose much if that person dies, and will also give them more time to prepare. This son is quite different, however. As the son of the leader, his position within the clan is quite unique. If I were to kill him, then I'm afraid that the Xia clan would be the second coming of the Tianxiong clan and immediately mobilize their entire clan to deal with us. Although I don't fear them, but our brothers are injured, so it is in our best interest to avoid a clash. The captain is quite wise. The 6 great saint masters all nodded their head in approval. Jian Qin took out some money from his space belt. There are 5,000 purple coins in here. Kai Er, take this money and go heal yourselves. We must make sure that everyone is fully healed, and if there's any money left over, share it with everyone else. Outside the gates, 20 blue-robed men riding on top of Class 2 magical beasts quickly rode into Wake City in a fierce rush. The one leading them was sitting on top of an expensive-looking Class 3 magical beast and did not look to be lacking in strength. This type of formation had plenty of people as well as having magical beasts that neither caravans or mercenaries could afford to have. Just as they entered the entrance to Wake City, the grandiose-looking carriage of the Xia clan simultaneously came charging out. Each one of the guards were looking down, and on top of one of the Class 2 magical beasts, there was a body that continued to leak blood. At the sight of the Xia clan's chariot, the blue-robed men couldn't help but stop. I didn't think that the Xia clan would beat us here first. It looks like we came too late. The leader on top of the Class 3 magical beast muttered to himself. Soon after, his eyes widened as he saw an inconceivable sight. How could this be? Could Wake City have a high-level expert strong enough to kill Lu Zheng? The man couldn't help but gasp in shock. Master, that's the chariot of the Xia clan. I didn't think they'd come here so fast. I can only assume that the Class 5 monster cores have been purchased by them already. A skinny man said from the side. The middle-aged shook his head as he looked at the dead body on the magical beast without saying a single word. Chapter 256, Heavenly Flower Sect. Watching the Xia clan drive off into the distance, the middle-aged man shouted out to his men, "Let's go into the city." The 20 men all strode on and past the guards. None of the city guards dared to stop them, as judging from the magical beasts, they knew these men were strong. So without any further obstructions, the group entered the city. The man sitting on top of the Class 3 magical beast led the group into the streets. Looking around him, he then turned to look at the group behind him, Disciple Zhang. Teacher. Immediately, one of the men riding on a magical beast came up to where the middle-aged man was and spoke up, "Teacher, what is needed of me?" Disciple Zhang, go and take a few people to see what happened to the Xia clan. The man sitting on the Class 3 magical beast spoke with a serious expression. Yes, teacher. Without question, the disciple immediately called over a few men and rode off to find out some information. Let us wait a moment for Disciple Zhang to return. The man had his mount stop by the side of a street and spoke to the rest of his group. We follow teacher's command. The rest of the uniformed men spoke out. Afterward, the dozen men and magical beasts all waited by the side of the street patiently. On the street, many passers-by turned their heads to look at their group with curiosity. Quickly, the group of men who had rode off to find information came back. The one called Disciple Zhang came up to the middle-aged man and spoke out, "Teacher, we've came across some information. Less than an hour ago, the Xia clan arrived at Wake City and immediately rushed toward the Kai clan's compound, but they soon left afterward." The middle-aged man's eyebrows furrowed together as he muttered, "Kai clan, so this is just what I expected. Teacher, should we go to the Kai clan?" Disciple Zhang asked. Although he looked like a rough man in stature, he was very meticulous in his thoughts. The middle-aged man shook his head as he looked at the rest of the group. Let's go and find an inn to take residence in for now. Teacher, are we really not going to the Kai clan then? A voice called out in confusion from behind. The situation is quite different. Let's first find an inn for now. With this, the middle-aged man rode away on his magical beast mount. In a grand-looking room with its doors closed shut, another middle-aged man and two others around similar ages were all gathered together. One of them wore a blue uniform with his hair almost covering his face. Another was a heavily rugged man with a shaved head with his naked arms being revealed from his uniform. "Teacher, what purpose have you called us here for?" the blue-uniformed man asked. "This Kai clan is quite complicated if even Lu Zheng was killed by them. It would appear the mission given to us by the sect leader will be quite difficult to accomplish. Teacher, on the road, I heard plenty of information regarding this Jian Chen. Rumors say that he, alongside two fire-attributed Earth Saint Masters, killed 3 Class 5 magical beasts. If he was able to fight with a Class 5 magical beast, then his strength is surely not weak. It seems to me that Lu Zheng from the Xia clan was most likely killed by Jian Chen. Within Wake City, only he would be able to kill a man of his strength." The bald man said. The one being called teacher nodded his head. "This mission given to us is quite difficult. Lu Zheng from the Xia clan isn't too far away in terms of strength compared to me, so I didn't think that he would die here. It appears that we will need to pay a visit to this mysterious expert named Jian Chen. There's no time to waste, teacher, we should go now," one of the men quickly proposed. "All right." Immediately, the 3 men exited the inn and rode on their expensive-looking magical beast down the street toward the Kai clan. Arriving at the doors to the Kai clan, the 3 men dismounted from their horse and immediately walked up to the guards standing there. Cupping his hands, one of the men spoke out respectfully, "Fellow brother, we are from the Tianhua sect with an important matter to discuss with your clan leader. Would it be possible for us to enter?" The man didn't dare sound arrogant, so his voice was very amicable sounding. "That's fine. Please wait here while I go notify the leader." The guard didn't hesitate at all before leaving to report back to the leader. The 3 middle-aged men waited patiently with calm expressions. Within the Kai clan courtyards, Jian Chen, Kai Er, and the 5 great Saint Masters were all currently discussing among themselves on what the next step should be to deal with the Xia clan. Although they weren't sure if the Xia clan was willing to go to war over the man's death, they still had to make sure preparations were in place so they wouldn't be caught unprepared. At this moment, a guard swiftly entered and spoke up, "My lord, there are 3 men from the Tianhua sect that wish to meet with the clan leader." "What, the Tianhua sect?" Hearing this, Kai Er was startled. Immediately he turned to the guard and asked him, "Were there truly only 3 men?" "Yes, my lord, there were only 3 men." The guard replied respectfully. Seeing Kai Er's reaction, Jian Chen narrowed his eyes and asked, "Kai Er, who are the Tianhua sect and just how strong are they?" "Captain, the Tianhua sect is a sect located 2,000 kilometers away from Wake City on a mountain. I'm not too sure of their exact strength, but they are not any weaker than the Xia clan. In fact, they are actually far stronger," Kai Er said seriously. Jian Chen could begin to feel a sharp headache coming as he muttered, "The temptation of Class 5 monster cores is truly great. I didn't think that an even more powerful faction than the Xia clan would appear straight afterward." "Captain, this Tianhua sect clearly wants the Class 5 monster core. It's up to you to decide, do we handle this matter the same way we dealt with the Xia clan?" Mo Tian asked. Jian Chen shook his head slowly, "Let's see first before we act. Although I'm not afraid of them, I have to do my best to avoid the trouble that offending a powerful group would bring to our brothers." Soon after, Jian Chen brought Duo Kong and the rest of the great Saint Masters to the front gates. From a distance, Jian Chen could see the 3 uniformed middle-aged men standing there. One of them was a peak Great Saint Master and the other 2 were middle Great Saint Masters. "This one is called Jian Chen. What matters might the Tianhua sect have?" Jian Chen cupped his hands respectfully. When the 3 men looked at Jian Chen, each one of them were extremely surprised. Immediately, the person up front cupped his hands together, "So you are Sire Jian Chen. Sure enough, the rumors saying that you are quite the handsome youth are true. Us 3 are from the Tianhua sect. I am Qing Yun, and these two are my disciples. Qing Shan. Qing Mu. The two men standing right next to him cupped their hands together. Chapter 257, Pressure. Seeing how the Tianhua sect's men were quite pleasant in attitude and didn't have any notion to cause trouble, Jian Chen let out a breath of air in relief inwardly. He was no longer a single person fighting for himself because of the flame mercenaries. So Jian Chen truly did not want to offend anyone that was too powerful, otherwise his flame mercenaries would face annihilation a second time. Jian Chen greeted the three politely and then led the three into the Kai clan's courtyards. Within Jian Chen's personal courtyard, he and the three men from the Tianhua sect sat at a stone table before smiling wide. Fellow brothers, I've heard that the Tianhua sect is 2,000 miles away from Wake City. You must have rushed here, is that true? Jian Chen didn't waste any time on idle words and immediately got straight to the point. The three men looked at each other with a hint of hesitation before Qing Yun cleared his throat. The truth is, our Tianhua sect has heard about Sire Jian Chen having a Class 5 monster core. That is an item our Tianhua sect desires to have, so our leader has ordered us to come to Wake City to see if we are able to purchase it from you. Jian Chen had a regretful look on his face from that answer. My apologies, but while I do indeed have a Class 5 monster core on me, it is not for sale since I have use for it as well. Jian Chen's cultivation needed a ton of energy from monster cores, and in order to heal the Azure and Violet Sword spirits, he would need a tremendous amount of that energy. While he had plenty of Class 3 and Class 4 monster cores, it was still not enough. A single Class 5 monster core was equivalent to 100 Class 4 monster cores in terms of energy. So a Class 5 monster core would definitely remain in his possession. Besides, he didn't need any more money anyways. Class 5 monster cores could easily be bought within a highly populated city where experts gathered, but in a faraway city like Wake City, they were especially rare. Even if they could be found in the market, then their prices would be extravagantly high. The men had known this result was coming, yet they couldn't help but have a look of dejection on their faces as they listened to Jian Chen. A Class 5 monster core was a treasure that even the Tianhua sect would want. If they were to go to a major city to buy one, then the hazards associated with it would be heavy. If the news were to escape that they bought one, then on the road they would be besieged by bandits who would fight them over it. In the Tianyuan continent, there weren't many Earth Saint Master bandits, but there were plenty of major bandit groups or even Heaven Saint Master experts that wanted in on the monster core. After talking for a while, the three men all left the courtyard in a hurry. Returning back to their original inn, the three men congregated in the same room behind closed doors. Teacher, now that we know this Jian Chen is not willing to sell his Class 5 monster core, what shall we do? The bald-headed Qing Mu said. Qing Yun narrowed his eyes. This Jian Chen seems very young, but with the experience I've gained in my lifetime, I can tell that this person is not ordinary at all. He is a mystery with strength that is equally shocking. Although we weren't able to accurately guess just how strong he is, if he was able to fight with a Class 5 monster, then that means his strength isn't anything minor. Furthermore, he was able to kill Lu Zheng, who is similar to me in terms of strength. Teacher, then should we return back to the sect? Qing Shan spoke with an unwilling face. The middle-aged man went silent for a moment. If a youth like this has such a strength, then my only concern is that Jian Chen has a strong clan supporting him. This isn't something we can recklessly dive into. We first must report back to the leader and wait for a confirmation on the next step. Qing Shan, Qing Mu, you two will stay in Wake City for now and pay attention to whatever happens. Bear in mind, you must not cause trouble for the Kai clan and wait for me to return. Yes, teacher. The two instantly replied. Although the age difference between the three wasn't all that much, Qing Mu and Qing Shan both placed a heavy importance on Qing Yun in their hearts. Qing Yun didn't hesitate and left the room before mounting his Class 3 magical beast to ride back toward the Tianhua sect in a hurry. The Kai clan had Jian Chen sitting down by his courtyard. After the three men had left, Jian Chen remained at the table in deep thought. The allure that the Class 5 Monster Core had brought him more attention than he had thought it would. He had no idea that a Class 5 Monster Core would have even Earth Saint Masters come from far away to buy it. Jian Qin did know that if his own strength wasn't strong enough to make the others afraid, then the Monster Core would have been stolen from him long ago. Today had been the day where he had sent off the Xia clan and then was promptly visited by the Tianhua sect, which was not weaker than the Xia clan. Both clans were not to be trifled with and each had an Earth Saint Master supervising them. Who knew whether or not in the future that an even stronger faction would show up? An Earth Saint Master was a high-leveled expert that could threaten even Jian Qin. After seeing the power of the 3 Class 5 magical beasts fight him, Jian Qin could roughly guess that if he were to come across a first or second cycle Earth Saint Master, then his Azure and Violet Sword Chi would be able to help deal with them. However, if he were to come across a 5th or 6th cycle Earth Saint Master, then his odds were significantly lower. The difference between each Earth Saint Master was extremely vast, thus why they were split into 2 6 cycles. From the 1st to 6th cycle, the gap between each cycle was an almost uncrossable divide. The Xia clan and the Tianhua sect's Earth Saint Masters were threats to Jian Qin and his flame mercenaries. Even though he had a decent amount of Great Saint Masters, up against a large clan, there was no chance of victory. Let's take advantage of this situation. I must take this chance to improve my own strength. Jian Qin spoke with determination before returning to his room. Sitting in a cross-legged position on his bed, Jian Qin held a Class 4 Monster Core in both hands as he began to think to himself deeply. After making the breakthrough to become a Great Saint Master and learning the existence of the Azure and Violet Sword spirits, he knew that both spirits were in dire straits and required an enormous amount of energy to slowly recover. The fact that both sword spirits were weak played a direct part in how strong the sword chi would be. While he was fully capable of helping the sword spirits recover their strength, Jian Qin couldn't guarantee just how much he could play a part since an extremely large amount of energy was needed. Right now, he had 2 different methods of improving his strength. The first was to give every single last bit of the energy he cultivated to the Azure and Violet Sword spirits to allow them to heal. This way the sword spirits would grow stronger as well. The second was to use the energy for himself and increase the strength of his own body and capabilities. However, if he were to use the second method, then unless he cultivated to the peak Great Saint Master level, he would not be a match for any Earth Saint Master by himself. Jian Qin thought to himself for a moment without making a decision. Finally, he decided on the second path to carefully cultivate his own strength. Although the Azure and Violet Sword Chi was extremely strong, in the end, it was a foreign power to him and not truly his. If he grew too reliant on it, then his future path would be severely impacted by it as well. He had to improve his own strength so that he would be able to fully support himself under this existence in a new world. Chapter 258, Who Did It? Jian Qin sat on his bed cross-legged with 2 Class 4 Monster Cores in each hand as he continued to absorb the energy into his body. After his breakthrough to become a Great Saint Master, the amount of energy he could absorb at once had increased much to Jian Qin's utter relief. After the Azure and Violet Sword spirits had awakened, the amount of energy they were taking from him had decreased significantly. He could now absorb around half of the energy within a monster core in comparison to the lowly 10% he had when the sword spirits had been actively taking it. Now that the Azure and Violet Sword spirits were awake and were capable of self-thought, they still didn't communicate with Jian Qin frequently. They were connected to Jian Qin in a unique way and sometimes communicated to him via a mysterious manner. Within the Kai clan, after Jian Qin had begun to cultivate, the members of the Flame Mercenaries all took out a few monster cores and began to cultivate themselves. Each one of them had felt a huge pressure on them with the Xia clan and Tianhua sect coming into the scene. Despite being relatively new to the Flame Mercenaries and knowing Jian Qin for a very small amount of time, his words and actions had already gained everyone's respect and acknowledgement. In a flash, a whole day went by and turned to night. Ever since the Tianhua sect had left, the Kai clan had been extremely peaceful with not a single person making a racket. 2,000 kilometers away within a dense forest on a mountain, there was a clear patch of grass. A series of pavilions stood tall in the night sky as a group of fireflies floated about and illuminated the night sky. The Tianhua sect was located within the borders of the Blue Wind Empire. For over 100 years, they had been slowly gathering strength, and so after those 100 years, they had finally made it out of the preliminary step. They had 1,000 disciples with at least 50 great saint masters, making their sect one of the most powerful ones for kilometers around. Within one of the private rooms, two uniformed men sat on the opposite sides of each other. "Senior, with the situation looking like this, I don't know what the proper course of action should be." A middle-aged man spoke seriously. It was Qing Yun. After returning to the Tianhua sect, he had reported what he had learned in Wake City to the leader of the sect. The uniformed man sitting on the opposite side of Qing Yun went silent for a moment. This man was the leader of the sect, Qing Tian. He was 5 years older than Qing Yun, and while the age difference wasn't that big, the difference between their cultivation rate simply couldn't be compared. A few years back, Qing Tian broken through the bottleneck to become an Earth Saint Master. With his talent, his cultivation had been astoundingly fast. Qing Yun on the other hand still remained at the peak Great Saint Master level. Qing Tian pondered to himself before speaking lightly, although a Class 5 monster core is quite precious, it isn't priceless. They are relatively common in a major city, so even if Jian Chen doesn't wish to sell it, then that's that. It would be in our best interest to not bother him regarding this. I've a feeling that this Jian Chen is even more complex than what meets the eye. If we were to offend him, then our Tianhua sect might come across some trouble. Senior, could it be that you are worried about the power standing behind Jian Chen? Qing Yun spoke with a serious expression. Qing Tian nodded his head. Correct, this worries my heart a little. However, no matter if the power standing behind Jian Chen is strong or not, his cultivation talent alone is enough to shock people. The amount of 20-year-olds with that type of power on the Tianyuan continent can be almost counted on one hand. Given a few more years, then I'm afraid to see what type of expert Jian Chen will become. As of right now, we've done nothing wrong to him. We simply cannot afford to offend such a genius like him for the sake of a single Class 5 monster core. Junior, tomorrow, you will return to Wake City and if possible, become close friends with Jian Chen. Qing Yun nodded his head. Senior, I didn't think that our thoughts would be so similar. I was worried about this as well, so that's why I came back to report it to you. Qing Tian smiled before looking at Qing Yun seriously. Junior, you've already reached the level of a peak Great Saint Master. Who knows how fast you will make a breakthrough to become an Earth Saint Master given a Class 5 monster core. With this, Qing Yun let out a breath of air with dejection before shaking his head. No, even if a Class 5 monster core increasing my chances, I still have not yet grasped a guaranteed success. If I shatter my saint weapon during this stage, then it would be extremely hard to reform it. Qing Yun paused for a moment before speaking up again. Senior, it's getting quite late so I'll be returning to my bed first. I'll have to leave for Wake City first thing in the morning after all. With that, Qing Yun left the room quickly. At the same time in the depths of another mountain 1,000 kilometers away, there lay a manor house towering over the forests. This manor house belonged to the Xia clan. The Xia clan had established this manor house a few dozen years ago. The first clan leader was an Earth Saint Master expert, and because of his existence, the Xia clan became the #1 power in the region and grew in power from there. However, the Xia clan's headquarters was not in a city. For the sake of conveniency and no restrictions, they had established another general headquarters at a second-class city a few dozen kilometers away. At this moment within the Xia clan's halls, 20 men sat quietly at the table with a stretcher covered by a white cloth nearby. Underneath the white cloth was the figure of a person and a few traces of blood. Because of this sight, the mood within the halls was quite somber. Just then, a white-robed elderly man with a great beard walked forward. Directly sitting down in front, the elder looked at the group assembled in front of him who looked back at him respectfully. We pay our respects to the leader. Just as the elder sat down, the 20 men all left their seats to immediately kowtow to the elder. The elder looked at everyone for a brief moment before looking at the stretcher. There was a complex look on his face for a moment before the elder waved his hand. "You may sit." "Yes, leader." It was only at this moment that everyone could finally sit back down. Each one of them could see a calm expression on the elders' faces without a hint of worry. From this, they could all tell that the elder's mood was rather light. The elder continued to look at the stretcher in the middle of the hall for a long moment before sighing. Rising from his seat, he slowly walked toward it and began to lift up the cover. Right in front of his eyes lay a man whose vacant-looking eyes stared blankly up toward the ceiling. From his neck, there was a single wound with some blood still drying. The elder slowly closed the dead man's eyes with his hand before covering up his face once more. He then walked back to his seat and sat down before looking at everyone. Just what exactly happened here? Who was the one that killed Lu Zheng? The elder's voice sounded calm, but everyone knew in their hearts that the elder's heart was filled with a furious wrath. Chapter 259, The Xia clan's dispatch. With those words, the entire hall went quiet as everyone grew serious. The 20 men began to grow nervous as they watched their patriarch. As high-ranking members of the Xia clan, they knew of the deep and personal friendship between him and Lu Zheng. After his death, each one of them had found it very difficult to report it to their patriarch. The serious stare in the patriarch's eyes grew colder as he suddenly stared daggers at everyone. At this, everyone's heart suddenly jumped. "My lord, this matter would be best explained by the young lord. Only he will be able to give a clear and detailed explanation of the matter." A middle-aged man spoke out nervously with a forehead filled with sweat. "Have Xia Lu come straight away," the patriarch ordered. A person immediately left the room in order to fetch the young lord Xia Lu. After a while, the fearful face of Xia Lu entered the hall and kneeled down. "Grandson Xia Lu sees honorable grandfather." The patriarch's eyes landed onto Xia Lu's body. His previously cold eyes grew softer and softer by the moment before speaking. "Lu Er, just what exactly happened? Who was the one that killed your uncle?" "Grandfather, you must take revenge for Uncle Lu's death." Xia Lu's face became sorrowful before describing the detailed story of just what had happened between Jian Chen and the Xia clan. Embellishing the story, he pushed all of the blame onto the Kai clan and Jian Chen and had even painted Jian Chen out to be a maliciously evil person so that he himself was abstained from guilt. However, he did not try to hide Jian Chen's strength at all, since killing Lu Zheng was already proof enough of his strength. After Xia Lu finished talking, the patriarch went silent for a moment as he began to think to himself. His eyes then flashed dangerously as he finally spoke to his grandson. "Lu Er, this man named Jian Chen killed Lu Zheng in a single sword strike, is that right?" "Grandfather, this is absolutely true. If you don't believe your grandson's words, then ask the guards." Each one of them saw it for themselves. That Jian Chen is too much. Not only does he not even think of the Xia clan as being worthy, he also doesn't think we're on an even level as him. He openly curses our Xia clan. "Grandfather, you must not allow him to get away. Uncle Lu's death must be avenged." Xia Lu cried out in anguish. His hatred for Jian Chen had already made its way all the way to his bones. "My lord, the one named Jian Chen is truly too much. If we do not do anything about this, then I fear that our Xia clans will be impacted by this in the future." A middle-aged man spoke out. "I agree, my lord, this matter is not something we can ignore. We must take revenge for Lu Zheng's death." The seated group of men began to talk among themselves. Although Lu Zheng had been killed by a single strike, not a single one of them were worried. They had absolute confidence in the patriarch's strength. The patriarch clasped his hands together and spoke out to the nervous crowd. "The father of Lu Zheng and I have been friends for countless of years. His father has saved my life, and when he himself was dying, he entrusted Lu Zheng's healthy life to me. Now that he has been killed, it doesn't matter how strong the culprit is or who they are. This is not something I will easily forget. Furthermore, Lu Zheng himself has done many things for our Xia clan, his contributions are endless. Therefore, I cannot allow his death to go in vain. Zhenhua, go and hire a few quick-minded men to go to Wake City to scout out for information. Before we take action, I want to know their strength to the finest detail. Yes, my lord. The next few days were relatively peaceful as the after effects of the magical beast wave had finally died down in Wake City. The entire city was already back to fully healing and was booming once more. The prize reward for any information on Kendall's family had affected many people. Everyone had coveted that monetary reward, so multiple people would try any possible method for the sake of getting a little of that money. However, after several days, Jian Chen hadn't heard a single piece of verifiable information since so many people had tried to sneak away with the money with fake information. During the same time, Jian Chen had stayed within the Kai clan without taking a step out of it. Commander Duo Li would come by once a day to report the news regarding the search, and the 3 men from the Tianhua sect would come by often to find Jian Chen and talk to him. Following several days of talking, Jian Chen and the 3 men couldn't help but become closer friends. Jian Chen had managed to talk about the Xia clan with the 3 men at times. Fortunately for him, he had learned that the Xia clan only had a single Earth Saint Master who had made that breakthrough 10 years ago. His talent at cultivation wasn't that outstanding, so he should be at the 2nd or 3rd cycle at this point, which was not a major threat to Jian Chen. During his cultivation, Jian Chen had dispatched some flame mercenaries to spy on the Xia clan. Although they wouldn't be able to see their every move, they would at least know if a large amount of troops were being moved about. Thanks to these few days of cultivation without interruption, Jian Chen's strength had increased at a terrifying rate. Right now, his strength was at the middle Great Saint Master level. In the evening, a travel-weary youth slowly made his way to the Kai clan and quickly ran straight to Jian Chen's little courtyard without stopping. Captain, this morning, a large amount of troops were seen moving out from the Xia clan toward Wake City. The mercenary panted in deep breaths. Jian Chen maintained his sitting posture as he cultivated, but his eyes looked at the youth calmly. How many people are there and when will they arrive? There's a total of 300 men, but because of their numbers, they won't be able to travel very fast. If they travel through the night, then they will arrive by midnight. If they take a rest, then they will arrive tomorrow. The mercenary said seriously. Jian Chen waved his hand without any expression. You may leave. After the mercenary had left, Jian Chen had sat in his bed for a moment as he muttered to himself. If the flame mercenaries fight against the Xia clan now, then it would be like striking a stone with an egg. We cannot sit around for our death, so it is best to strike first. If we can strike at them during the night, then our casualties will be limited. Thinking about a plan for the next few minutes, Jian Chen then brought the 7 great Saint Masters on their Class 2 magical beast mounts out of the city. A kilometer outside of Wake City, 3 uniformed men suddenly moved into Jian Chen's path. These 3 men were Qing Yun, Qing Mu, and Qing Shan of the Tianhua sect. Ha, brother Jian Chen, where are you heading off to? Qing Yun said with a smile toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen cupped his hands together. Ah, brothers Qing Yun, Qing Mu, and Qing Shan. Since it's night time, we have some matters to take care of. Qing Yun laughed. If my guess is correct, then brother Jian Chen is going to deal with the Xia clan? Jian Chen nodded his head without a single word. Qing Yun's face grew serious for a moment as he continued to speak. Brother Jian Chen, do not take this as me underestimating you, but the strength of the Xia clan is not weak at all. They have 10 great Saint Masters while everyone else is at the Saint Master level. Furthermore, the patriarch of the Xia clan is personally leading the troops. With just the 8 of you, even if you win somehow, there will be a heavy price to pay. Hearing this, Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. The troops that the Xia clan was leading was truly beyond his expectations. Qing Yun continued to smile at Jian Chen. Although brother Jian Chen will find it difficult to fight against the Xia clan with 8 people, then if you add the 3 of us, then this will be an easier matter. Will brother Jian Chen accept our help? Chapter 260, Assassination Operation. Startled, Jian Chen quickly tried to recover and smiled. If Brother Qing Yun wishes to join me, then this one will be very grateful. However, I am puzzled. Are you not afraid of provoking the Xia clan and make trouble for the Tianhua sect? Brother Jian Chen, you might know this, but although our Tianhua sect and the Xia clan are separated by a long distance, there was once a clash of conflict between us, making our sides fight. Afterward, a few of our Tianhua sect disciples had mysteriously disappeared, but we could only guess that the Xia clan was the reason for that. We just never found clear evidence of their actions. We wish to exterminate the Xia clan, but if we were to take action, then our Tianhua sect would suffer greatly as well, so the best we could do was to put this matter off. Now that Jian Chen wishes to fight with the Xia clan, then us three will do our best to help you. Qing Yun spoke. Ha, so it's like that. Then this one truly thanks you three for your help. Jian Chen laughed joyously. With the three of them, their strength would increase several times over. After that, Jian Chen and the Tianhua sect disciples didn't waste any more time talking and immediately rode off into the distance on their magical beast mounts. At this moment it was barely the start of the new morning. The sky was still dark because of the dark clouds in the sky, with the moon slightly hidden behind them. Deep within the sky, the distant sounds of thunder could be heard. Roughly 300 miles outside of Wake City, there were several hundred tents scattered about, with a few campfires starting to be lit up. The campfires danced in the dark light and flickered energetically. In the center of the campgrounds was a large flag that was hoisted into the air so that everyone could see the giant Xia symbol on it. By this point, the majority of the group had already rested up, so a few men began to patrol back and forth among the tents while the rest stoked the wood in their campfire. Bang! A sudden crack of thunder illuminated the campground with an ear-splitting sound. In that instant, the entire campground was lit up brightly as if it was daytime. Straight after that, a torrential downpour came down from the skies and immediately extinguished the campfires and threw the campfire into complete darkness. With the heavy downpour, not a single thing could be heard. What bad luck for us to be under such bad weather. One of the patrolmen cursed as he crawled into a tent to avoid the rain. 500 meters away, the figures of a few men suddenly darted closer, with the rain and darkness hiding their figures. The rain muffled their footsteps so that their movements would not be noticed. This group was Jian Chen and the others from Wake City. 200 meters away from the campground, Jian Chen and the group came to a stop. After taking a moment to talk about the plan, Jian Chen carefully took off toward the campground while the others remained behind. Jian Chen stopped at the closest tent before carefully entering. Inside the tent it was so dark that Jian Chen couldn't see his hand when it was right in front of him, so his entire figure wouldn't be spotted. Using his spirit to let him perceive what was in the tent, he could sense 3 men inside still sleeping. Without hesitation, he flashed his sword and stabbed the 3 of them before immediately leaving. Jian Chen was completely confident in his sword technique. In those 3 blows, he had stabbed all 3 of their throats and claimed their lives without a single sound. Under the heavy downpour, Jian Chen traveled from tent to tent as the rain poured down on him. Right now he was completely drenched in water, and as a result, he looked bedraggled. Originally Jian Chen had planned on fighting with the Xia clan in the open, but after this heavy rain, he had decided on a new change of plans. If he could assassinate a few of the Xia clansmen before the battle, then the military might of the Xia clan would be cut down in size. If he could assassinate the Earth Saint Master in their clan, then there would no longer be a heavy threat to him. However, Jian Chen wasn't sure that he would be able to kill the Earth Saint Master, so he had decided to clean up the lower-leveled members to cause the maximum amount of damage to the Xia clan's fighting force. Although assassination wasn't an area that Jian Chen was an expert in, the heavy rain really helped cover up Jian Chen's tracks and movements. So no one was able to detect him at all. In a short moment, Jian Chen had already killed 100 men, roughly 30% of the Xia clan's total number of people. After another short moment, the total number of people that Jian Chen had killed was around 200. Right now, nearly 100 of the tents were coated with blood on the inside. Some of the blood made it to the outside, but the rain was starting to wash it away slowly while the stench of blood remained slowly filling up the area. In the center of the campground within a large tent, the patriarch of the Xia clan sat cross-legged with his eyes closed as he cultivated. His entire body was so still that he seemed almost like a statue. Then, the patriarch's nose twitched before his eyes flew open and he stared dangerously outward. Trying to listen closely, his eyes narrowed. How strange, why is there a faint smell of blood? Straining his ears even further, he tried to listen for a brief moment before immediately sensing something and roaring, "Wake everyone up, someone's here." With that, the patriarch immediately flew out from his tent. Within the campgrounds, every single person was now starting to wake despite the ongoing downpour of rain before storming out of their tents. Now that his position was revealed, Jian Chen no longer hid and immediately began to fly about killing the nearest person to him so that he would be able to kill the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. Jian Chen was starting to use the entirety of his strength. His light wind sword flew out at rapid speeds and instantly pierced through the throats of those closest to him. Realizing where Jian Chen was and what he was doing, the patriarch let out a huge roar before bringing out a giant axe to swing down on him. At the same time, the 7 great Saint Masters and the 3 men from the Tianhua sect immediately charged into the camp from 200 meters away. The light wind sword in Jian Chen's hand began to glow with a hazy silver light that was extremely noticeable in the dark night. A faint amount of intense sword qi began to float outward. Those closest to Jian Chen could feel the terrifying amount of power from it. Right now, every single person still alive charged toward Jian Chen, who bore straight into a group and began to kill indiscriminately. Evading the patriarch's attack, Jian Chen killed another dozen Saint Masters with his fast sword techniques. With even great Saint Masters needing to be careful against Jian Chen, Saint Masters wouldn't even be able to catch a glimpse of his sword strikes. Thus every Saint Master found that their throats had been pierced and died without even being able to scream. Against such a large group like this Jian Chen along with the patriarch, there was still another restriction on top of that. With the darkness, Jian Chen wasn't able to see too clearly, but that restriction applied to the Xia clansmen as well. They weren't able to see Jian Chen or even predict his movements as he moved about. Even more so, they were afraid that if they made a move, they would hit one of their own. Seeing how his clansmen were continuously dropping to the ground, the patriarch's chest began to beat furiously as he roared, "Everyone move out of the way." With that order, every single clansman immediately scattered, allowing their patriarch to fight against Jian Chen. Right after everyone moved away, the patriarch was able to lock onto Jian Chen's position, and without hesitation, he suddenly brought down his axe in the direction Jian Chen was heading. Sensing the sudden gust of wind come toward him, Jian Chen's eyes flashed dangerously as he brought his light wind sword up. Suddenly, a faint glow of azure and violet light could be seen, allowing Jian Chen to then fearlessly bring his own sword against the patriarch's axe. Jian Chen was quite familiar with the azure and violet sword qi, but now he wanted to test it out to see whether or not if he could break apart an Earth Saint Master's saint weapon. Chapter 261, Killing an Earth Saint Master, Ding. The light wind sword and the axe made contact in the air with a clanging sound as an explosion of energy flew out from the impact and scattered the rain around them off into every direction. As the 2 saint weapons separated, Jian Chen's figure couldn't help but be sent flying back uncontrollably with the arm holding his sword trembling slightly. After all, his strength in comparison to the patriarch's was much weaker. The azure and violet sword qi was able to strengthen his attack, but it wasn't able to strengthen his saint force. With this momentary contact with the patriarch, Jian Chen's inner organs felt the shock from the blow so heavily that he felt like vomiting blood. The difference between an Earth Saint Master and a Great Saint Master was as wide as the heavens themselves were endless. Even a battle skill would not help bridge the gap in any way. If Jian Chen did not strengthen his inner body many times over, then he would have suffered a serious injury. The patriarch of the Xia clan shook for a moment as his face went white. Then with a dark look and small growl, a small trickle of blood leaked from between his lips. The patriarch was filled with shock as he brought up his saint weapon to inspect it. Despite it being extremely dark outside, with the deep and personal connection he had with the saint weapon, he could sense that on the blade of his saint weapon, there was a finger-sized nick in it. How is this possible? The man spoke in utter disbelief. At this moment, his heart couldn't help be sent in turmoil. On his face was no longer a calm look, but one of shock. He was an expert of the Earth Saint Master level with a saint weapon that was already incomparably strong. It could be said that anyone below the Heaven Saint Master level without the use of a battle skill would not be able to injure his saint weapon in the least. At this very second, his saint weapon had been unexpectedly damaged with a finger-sized nick. This fact alone caused his very being to be shocked. Could it be this opponent is an expert of the Heaven Saint Master level? The patriarch of the Xia clan thought in alarm, but just as soon as the thought appeared in his head, he instantly dismissed it to be false. The Jian Qin in front of him felt extremely weak, so there was no way for him to be a Heaven Saint Master. Then just what exactly happened? The patriarch of the Xia clan began to pale as blood continued to flow. He simply couldn't imagine how his saint weapon could be broken. Common sense dictated that anyone that could potentially damage his saint weapon was an expert among experts within the Tianyuan continent. Experts like those could kill him as easily as killing an ant without him being able to retaliate. With his saint weapon injured, he himself had suffered a serious blow as well. While the patriarch was stuck in his moment of confusion, Jian Chen's sword had already flew at him once more. The hazy light emanating from the light wind sword was as clear as day in the night, as fast as lightning. The sword flew through the rain with a matchless speed as it aimed at the patriarch's throat. Despite Jian Chen's speed, the patriarch of the Xia clan was still an expert of the Earth Saint Master caliber. To him, this speed of Jian Chen meant that he shouldn't see him as a great Saint Master level threat anymore. Suppressing his wounds, the patriarch lifted his saint weapon and allowed it overflow with a blue-colored saint force. Suddenly, the surrounding water began to fly toward the weapon as if there was some sort of mysterious attraction. It flew toward the axe in his hands and began to condense at the tip of the weapon. Very quickly, the water began to rotate around before forming a dragon of water that flew toward Jian Chen. However, the azure and violet sword qi on Jian Chen's sword bore straight through the water dragon and continued to fly at the patriarch's throat. The patriarch's eyes flashed dangerously and he swung his weapon down onto Jian Chen. The axe in his hand carried such a heavy amount of saint force that the sound of it crashing downward caused a thunder-like sound that could split the sky. This axe's arc carried some sort of profound mystery to it that somehow pressed down against Jian Chen's body. This time, the patriarch had used a battle skill. Each and every battle skill, if properly used, would bring about some sort of powerful pressure. The higher level a battle skill was, the stronger the pressure. Each time these battle skills were used, it would cause countless people to be shocked, and could even change the outcome of a battle in a split second. Some battle skills could be harmonized to be used with a regular strike so that they would not look out of place. This type of attack style would make it hard to predict and understand as if it was a mystery of the world as well as giving it a formidable amount of power. The force behind this axe of the patriarch was not ordinary at all, the power was far too strong. As the two saint weapons made contact, the overwhelming power of the axe caused Jian Chen to be sent flying away with blood coming out from his mouth. However, even the patriarch did not escape without a scratch. Vomiting out some blood, he looked at Jian Chen with a look of fear and disbelief. On his axe, there was yet another jagged nick of the same size on his axe. While this latest exchange of blows had caused Jian Chen to be sent flying away, his saint weapon had been damaged once more. His saint weapon is far too strange, although he himself is not a Heaven Saint Master, but that attack was comparable to one. I cannot clash against him like this again. The patriarch concluded. He was bewildered yet greedy to find out just what exactly Jian Chen did to make his attack several times stronger. Was it a battle skill? Or maybe some sort of treasure? Whatever it was, it would undoubtedly be a priceless treasure, and if he were to grab hold of it. As he began to trail away, the Xia clan's patriarch felt his heart begin to beat wildly before staring at Jian Chen with greed. Jian Chen leaped up from the ground with his forehead full of sweat. Unable to attend to his wounds, he could only charge at the patriarch once more. Although the injury was quite serious, the patriarch's weapon had been damaged twice now, making his wounds even more serious than Jian Chen's. So compared to the patriarch, Jian Chen's wounds could be said to be quite light. Jian Chen's sword cut through the falling rain drops quickly as it flew toward the patriarch. By now, the patriarch had realized that Jian Chen's personal strength wasn't very strong, but his attack had far exceeded his own. So fearing another clash, the patriarch moved out of the way before trying to land a strike of his own. Jian Chen's sword art emphasized speed. Despite the patriarch making a Herculean effort to dodge, he was not fast enough to move out of the way completely. Jian Chen knew that an Earth Saint Master had a clear advantage over himself, so it was imperative for him to try to attack the patriarch's saint weapon. With this, the patriarch's strength would be limited and so he would not be able to freely attack or defend. On the other side, Qing Yun, Qing Mu, and Qing Shan fought alongside the 7 great saint masters of the Flame Mercenaries as they battled the remaining dozen members of the Xia clan. With Jian Chen killing the vast majority of the Xia clan in their sleep, the remaining few people were of the great saint master level, so while they had a disadvantage with numbers, they would be able to persevere. Qing Yun's strength had already reached the peak Great Saint Master level and his saint weapon had the earth attribute to it, making his battle skill even more deadly when used against the Xia clansmen. Jian Chen and the patriarch of the Xia clan continued to exchange several blows. Despite the patriarch trying his utmost best to dodge Jian Chen's sword, he couldn't help but be stabbed 3 times and have his axe suffer another 5 chips. With the increasing amount of damage to his saint weapon, the wounds the patriarch himself grew even more severe. If his saint weapon were to be destroyed by Jian Chen, not only would his entire strength be thrown away, but so would his life. Who are you and why are you attacking my Xia clan? Has our Xia clan wronged you in any way? The patriarch couldn't help but roar in confusion. Jian Chen didn't cease his attacks, but he replied coldly, "I'll let you know before you die. I am the man your Xia clan is currently setting out against." The patriarch's eyes narrowed as he stared at Jian Chen in concentration. "Could you be Jian Chen?" "Correct." Jian Chen didn't bother to deny it. His sword strikes grew even more fierce as if he was set on executing the patriarch today. He had no desire for his flame mercenaries to be targeted by an Earth Saint Master. "Jian Chen, why don't we just try and talk about this?" By now the patriarch was beginning to show his weakness. He was clearly at a disadvantage, and so if things continued this way, then the end would be near for him. Not possible. Jian Chen refused the Xia clan's attempt for a ceasefire. Hearing this, the patriarch's expression grew dark before staring dangerously at Jian Chen through the dark. "Jian Chen, this matter today, Xia fan, will definitely remember this." With that, the patriarch instantly turned around and began to flee. Immediately giving chase, Jian Chen knew that in this heavy rain and darkness, if the patriarch were to get too far away, he would not be able to catch up. While the patriarch's wounds were quite severe, he was still an Earth Saint Mazer. His inner saint force was enough to stabilize himself so that he could run fast enough for Jian Chen to be unable to catch up. Seeing that the patriarch was getting farther and farther away, Jian Chen's eyes flashed unnaturally bright, making it seem as if there were 2 fireflies in the night. The light wind sword in his hand immediately parted from his hand as if it had been brought to life. PCH. The patriarch simply did not think that Jian Chen would be able to accomplish such a strange feat, so he had been caught unaware, allowing the light wind sword to pierce straight through his throat. Chapter 262, Finished operation. With the heavy rain and darkness, visibility was extremely hampered. Combined with the fact that every single Xia clansman was still fighting, the death of the patriarch of the Xia clan had gone completely unnoticed. After piercing through the throat of the patriarch, the light wind sword spun in the air and flew back toward Jian Chen's hand. The Xia clan's patriarch truly did deserve the rank of being an Earth Saint Master. Even after being pierced through the throat, he did not die. Both of his eyes were wide open with terror, but unfortunately with his throat pierced, he had lost the ability to talk. Otherwise, he would have said what was on his mind as he was at his final moments. Because the sword that had pierced his throat was so inconceivably fast and could independently fly around the air, the Xia clan's patriarch had no knowledge of what this sword was. The life continued to drain away from the patriarch's inner organs and body. Slowly, he closed his eyes as he continued to try and solve the mystery that was on his mind. Thunder could be heard from the skies once more as the lightning illuminated the entire area for a brief moment. The immense downpour slammed against the ground so heavily that everyone's sense of hearing was severely affected. Jian Chen's water-soaked figure continued to drip with water as he walked toward the body. Squatting down, Jian Chen took off the patriarch's space belt on his waist and the space ring on his hand. With a brief inspection to see whether or not they were damaged, he then immediately left the area. The patriarch of the Xia clan was the leader of the clan, and was also the founder. At the same time, he was also an Earth Saint Master, meaning that the wealth he had would surely be a great boon to Jian Chen and the developing flame mercenaries. After killing the patriarch, Jian Chen didn't give up fighting and immediately charged toward the rest of the Xia clansmen. Since he now had an utter dislike for the Xia clan, he would not be merciless. With each one of these men being the strongest fighters in the clan, if they were all killed, then the Xia clan's strength would be drastically weakened. The Xia clan had an advantage, with multiple great Saint Masters and a few Saint Masters. Their fighting strength was strong enough for the 7 great Saint Masters to be injured. Even Qing Shan and Qing Mu were both injured, leaving only the Earth Saint Force and battle skill owner, Qing Yun, to be unscathed. He was fighting several great Saint Masters by himself, greatly reducing the pressure for the others on his side. With Jian Chen added to the mix, the previous advantage the Xia clan had was flipped around. A few ordinary Saint Masters working together may have threatened a regular great Saint Master and may have been enough to kill one, but in Jian Chen's eyes, they were nothing more than lambs to the slaughter. Jian Chen entered the group of Xia clansmen with his light wind sword striking everywhere at a rapid speed. Each and every sword strike found a home in one of the Xia clansmen's throats, and before they could react, their life had been claimed by Jian Chen. Under the quick killing pace that Jian Chen was setting, the Xia clansmen's numbers quickly dwindled down, and not too long after, not a single one remained. With his sudden appearance, the 3 men from the Tianhua sect were utterly amazed at Jian Chen. There had been 300 men from the Xia clan. Including the patriarch, everyone was killed without a single one escaping. On the other side, only the great Saint Masters from the flame mercenaries, Qing Shan and Qing Mu had taken damage. Every one of them was bloodied with open wounds that blood streamed out of. Brother Jian Chen, is the patriarch of the Xia clan dead? Qing Yun panted as he asked Jian Chen. Because Jian Chen and the patriarch had been fighting a far distance away in the pitch darkness, Qing Yun was completely unable to tell how the fight had gone. Furthermore, with the pressure he was feeling during the fight, he couldn't spare the time to try and get a good look. Jian Chen smiled, but with the darkness, it was not easily seen by the others. Don't worry, that old man has been taken care of by me already. With that, the 3 men from the Tianhua sect felt sweat form on their foreheads. Their hearts felt utter shock at this piece of information. None of them had thought that Jian Chen would be able to kill an Earth Saint Master with a battle skill so fast. Furthermore, from what information they had previously gathered, they knew that the Patriarch was a 2nd cycle Earth Saint Master who was on the verge of making it to the 3rd cycle. It's a good thing that our Tianhua sect chose not to provoke Jian Chen. For the sake of a single Class 5 monster core, it would not be worth it to make such an expert our enemy. Qing Yun thought to himself. Walking up to the rest of the flame mercenaries, Jian Chen looked at everyone and asked, "Are there any major injuries?" With these great Saint Masters being experts of the battlefield, Jian Chen wasn't willing to lose any of them. While there's a few heavy injuries, they're not life-threatening. Duo Kong spoke with a weak voice. Brother Jian Chen, their injuries look quite serious. We should head back to Wake City and have a Radiant Saint Master come treat them. Qing Yun proposed. Nodding his head, Jian Chen immediately set off to grab the space belts from every single person on the battlefield. Afterward, he led the group back to Wake City. Brother Jian Chen, Wake City doesn't have any Radiant Saint Masters, and even if there are, they are hard to find. You should take them back first. I'll go to a nearby second-class city to go find one. Qing Yun then followed up. Then I'll be relying on you, Brother Qing Yun. Jian Chen spoke with a respectful salute. Ha, Brother Jian Chen doesn't need to be so polite. Qing Yun responded before leaving by himself. Since Qing Shan and Qing Mu were injured, they followed Jian Chen and the others back to Wake City. The trip back to Wake City was rather slow because of their injuries. The rest of the morning passed by, Jian Chen and the rest finally arrived at Wake City. After reaching the Kai courtyards, Jian Chen found a few rooms for the 9 to rest up in. He dabbed some medicinal herbs onto their wounds and gave them some panacea so their wounds would heal at a faster rate. By evening, Qing Yun had brought a white-robed youth back to the Kai clan. This youth was around 28 years old with frail-looking disposition. There was an arrogant look on his face as he came in with a dark-skinned Great Saint Master. Chapter 263, Forcing open the jaws of the lion. Qing Yun led the white-robed man to where Jian Chen was and spoke out, Brother Jian Chen, I've brought the Radiant Saint Master to treat everyone. Hearing this, Jian Chen looked at the youth that Qing Yun had brought. This youth had an arrogant expression on his face that made him seem quite unsavory. However, that was because of how distinguished a Radiant Saint Master was in rank. Nonetheless, Jian Chen cupped his hands in greeting, honored friend, I apologize for bringing you so far. If you can help heal my fellow brothers, then this one will be truly grateful to you. The Radiant Saint Master looked at Jian Chen from the side with a look of disdain. Since he was a Radiant Saint Master and a decent one at that, he couldn't help but look down on such a lowly mercenary. Even more so, this mercenary was even younger than he was. Only a mercenary of the Earth Saint Master level would have been enough for him to have some sort of respect. Humph, don't speak such nonsense, I am not your friend. Hurry up and lead the way so we can take care of the people. I don't wish to stay around here any longer than I need to be and waste my time. The Radiant Saint Master snorted with an arrogant tone. Jian Chen and Qing Yun both narrowed their eyes at this type of speech. Although a Radiant Saint Master was a high-ranking status, this youth was truly too arrogant. However, for the sake of their brothers, neither Jian Chen nor Qing Yun bothered to say anything. Instead, they brought the Radiant Saint Master over to where the injured men were. The injured members of the Flame Mercenaries and the 2 Tianhua sect members were all laid out together in a single room. Jian Chen first brought the Radiant Saint Master to the bed where Qing Mu was resting on. On his paling face, both of his eyes were closed shut. He wore only undergarments to protect the most important places while the rest of his body was enwrapped with bloody bandages. Seeing the wretched state Qing Mu was in, the Radiant Saint Master's eyebrows knit together before inspecting his wounds even further. His wounds are quite serious, thus the price will be even more costly. I hope you prepare yourself mentally, I don't want to find out later that you cannot afford it. Jian Chen's eyes flashed coldly at these words. Whoever heard these words would have been put in a bad mood, even Qing Yun's eyes narrowed as he looked at the Radiant Saint Master unfavorably. Bang! Suddenly, a muffled bang could be heard as the dark-skinned man behind the Radiant Saint Master stepped toward him and stared at Jian Chen and Qing Yun. Honored Radiant Saint Master Aziz is one of our most exemplary members of the Radiant Saint Master Union. If you do not wish to be an enemy of our union, then restrain yourselves, otherwise, I will not be polite and later report this to the union. Both Jian Chen and Qing Yun looked subdued for a moment. The Radiant Saint Master Union was an especially unique organization that was like how the Mercenary Union worked. They had no allegiances or restriction to any nation. The Radiant Saint Master Union was where all of the Radiant Saint Masters on the continent gathered, and it gave them a place to shelter. There were plenty of strong martial artists that even the 7 great empires weren't willing to provoke. No matter who the person was that provoked a member of the Radiant Saint Master Union, they did not live long after that. When it came to this union, even Jian Chen and Qing Yun were afraid of the consequences. Unlike the Jessan Kingdom or the Tianhua sect, the union encompassed the entire continent. If you incurred the hatred of a single Radiant Saint Master, then it didn't matter if you ran to the end of the world itself, you would be hunted and killed. At the very least, from the beginning of their union, there has not been a single person that has lived after offending the Radiant Saint Master Union. Go ahead and heal them. The cost for healing them will of course be given. Jian Chen spoke. Hearing this, the Radiant Saint Master sneered coldly as he looked at the two slyly. His wounds are quite serious, so to heal them, I will need 1 or 2 days. This will be quite taxing on my spirit, so the cost of healing will be quite high in return. His eyes bore a hole into Jian Chen for a moment. I will require 50 purple coins. What, 50 purple coins? Jian Chen's eyes widened as he cried out in shock. This was no longer a matter of expensive or not expensive anymore. This healer was trying to cheat him. 50 purple coins, good heavens, that is a villainous deal. Qing Yun cried out with a flustered look. His injuries are already quite grave. Even if you used the very best herbs, it would take a month or 2 to heal from, and even then, that would not be a guaranteed full recovery. For me, collecting 50 purple coins is quite cheap. He had a firm look on his face, but he was laughing to himself secretly. He was quite familiar with Wake City, so he knew that he was the only Radiant Saint Master there. He also knew that the Kai clan had plenty of money, so since he was in control of the situation, he wasn't afraid to force open the jaws of the lion. Jian Chen quickly calmed himself as he looked at the youth in the eye. Fine, 50 purple coins it is. Please start to treat them right away. I sincerely hope your ability is worthy of these 50 coins. Jian Chen said with an impassive tone. Hold on, brother Jian Chen. This is too costly of a price. Although they are indeed heavily injured, the most an injury like this would cost is 5 purple coins. Even a third-class Radiant Saint Master would be able to heal them. Qing Yun spoke to Jian Chen from the side. This was a price that he was not quite willing to stomach. Jian Chen waved his hand away. This is no matter, it is just money. As long as brother Qing Mu and the rest heal, then what other purpose does money have? Letting out a sigh of relief, Qing Yun did say any more. The Radiant Saint Master smiled as he extended his hand toward Jian Chen. Hand over the money first then. With a small snort, Jian Chen immediately grabbed a handful of purple coins. There are a total of 9 injured men. Here are 450 purple coins, do your best to heal them. Seeing the large amount of purple coins, the youth's eyes lit up for a brief moment before taking in the money into his own coin pouch. You may leave now. I need to prepare and do not wish to be disturbed. With that, the youth didn't say anything else and began to gather his Radiant Saint force to prepare to heal Qing Mu. Chapter 264, Gathering of the Mercenaries. After 7 days had passed, the Radiant Saint Master had finally healed all 7 of the Great Saint Masters and the 2 men from the Tianhua sect. In those 7 days, Jian Chen and Qing Yun would talk every so often or go about their ways with closed-room cultivation. The Azure and Violet Sword spirits had helped him during the 7 days and allowed his cultivation speed to be a dozen times faster than usual, bringing his speed past the middle Great Saint Master realm. His inner Saint force was now past the primary Great Saint Master level as well, making him much stronger than before. At times, Jian Chen would go to the City Lord's mansion in order to hear the most recent information regarding Kendall's family. However, this only made him feel dejected since despite Yun Li's efforts and the high reward, not a single piece of information could be found. Regarding the final wishes of Kendall that had been entrusted to him, Jian Chen was trying his best to accomplish it. However, he hadn't heard a single piece of relevant information regarding his family, which made the task extremely difficult. For now, all Jian Chen could do was worry helplessly without any way of doing anything but to slowly wait. News of the 300 men from the Xia clan being slaughtered right outside Wake City quickly made its ways around. The Xia clan's might was strong enough to be considered one of the top strengths in the area. Their influence was everywhere, so this matter had been impossible to contain. The moment Wake City heard about this information, countless of people in every street and every tea house began to talk about this topic with great interest. Who do you think the Xia clan offended for them to have 300 members slaughtered? The Xia clan is the local power around this area. With a force this large, they must have been preparing to fight a war. That was inevitable. There is no one in this area that could get away with provoking them and staining their honor. I've heard that the patriarch of the Xia clan was an Earth Saint Master, who could kill such a person. I'm not too sure myself. While they are the strongest power here, that only applies to the area around here. If a strong expert were to wander into this area, it can't be said that they would be able to fight against the Xia clan, or even make a move against them. As the group conversed among each other with different conjectures, a good amount of them believed that the Xia clan would suddenly appear out of nowhere afterward to retake their lost honor. After all, their power was almost without rival, and in order to protect their own standing, they would definitely have to act. With this, everyone was shocked to hear that the Xia clan hadn't taken a single step at all in this matter. They hadn't even said a single word relating to how 300 men died. Instead, they resigned themselves to wallow in silence. The following morning, Qing Yun brought the fully recovered Qing Mu and Qing Shan to where Jian Chen was. Brother Jian Chen, we've stayed here for quite some time, so this time will be our farewell. There are some matters back at the sect for us to attend to. Qing Yun spoke. Cupping his hands in respect, Jian Chen smiled back. The everlasting feast of the world will come to you regardless of how fast you walk. We will see each other again in the future. Ha, your words are true. Brother Jian Chen, if you have time, please come visit us in the Tianhua sect. Qing Yun bowed back in respect. Of course, when I have the time, I will come and visit. Jian Chen replied. A sudden thought came into Qing Yun's mind as he jolted with realization. I've almost forgotten. Brother Jian Chen, in another half-year is the bicentennial gathering of the mercenaries. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it is a very difficult opportunity. Even if you want to participate but you miss the next one, then you will never be able to participate in the one after that. Gathering of the mercenaries. Jian Chen let out a surprised look on his face. Brother Qing Yun, what exactly is this gathering of the mercenaries? Could you please explain it to me? Hearing this, Qing Yun, a surprised expression covered his face. He didn't think that Jian Chen would have never heard about the gathering of the mercenaries before, but he laughed and replied, so it seems Brother Jian Chen hasn't heard about this event. Never mind, then let me explain it to you in detail. With this, he took a deep breath before explaining. The gathering of the mercenaries is an event where every single prominent mercenary group in the continent gathers to participate in. This event will be conducted in the general headquarters of the Mercenary Union, Mercenary City. Although the name says Gathering of the Mercenaries, in truth, this is a competition between mercenaries for dominance. This competition only takes place every 50 years, furthermore, the participants must be under the age of 50. So that's why if one's birth is untimely, then they will be unable to participate. Therefore, whether or not a person can participate within this bicentennial event also relies on luck. Each and every time the gathering of the mercenaries is held, it is always lively. Practically every single gifted mercenary on the continent gathers to vie for one of the top 100 ranks. After that, they will be awarded with a big monetary reward and honor. If one makes it within the top 10, then the reward will be even more rich. It's even said that for those who make it within the top 10, they will be able to come and go as they please into the arsenal of Mercenary City and select a heaven-tier cultivation method. If one makes it within the top 3, then not only will they be able to select a heaven-tier cultivation method, but they will also be able to take a heaven-tier battle skill. The moment he spoke the words, heaven-tier, cultivation method, and battle skill, Qing Yun's eyes burned with a fiery passion. This was something he clearly desired. No matter if it was a heaven-tier cultivation method or battle skill, the entire Tian Yuan continent would ravage itself for a chance to be able to lay claim to either of the two. After third place, the rewards will grow to be better and better. I've heard that the first place champion can not only choose any battle skill and cultivation method from the arsenal, but they will be allowed to cultivate within the holy grounds of Mercenary City for half a year. With this, Qing Yun took a long deep breath before continuing. The holy grounds of Mercenary City is the place every expert longs to go. Although I personally don't know how good the benefits are, but the holy grounds are something even Heaven Saint Masters yearn to go to. Legends have it that even many saint rulers stay around there as well. Qing Yun exhaled slowly as he spoke with a tremble, for even the supreme beings that are saint rulers to lays about in such an area, it can be concluded that the holy grounds within Mercenary City is a divine place to be. Hearing this, Jian Chen's heart couldn't help but begin to beat with an intense ferocity. The rewards Qing Yun spoke of caused his heart to go out of control. The words heaven tier battle skill alone were enough for his heart to tremble with desire. He did not have an overwhelming amount of desire for the holy grounds, but this battle skill could be donated to the Changyang clan. While the Changyang clan had a single heaven tier cultivation method, they were still lacking a heaven tier battle skill. Brother Jian Chen, the gathering of the mercenaries gives a wealthy reward to the top 10. Even if the absolute experts were to join, I can bet that a good majority of them will not be able to make it that far. I can bet that if Brother Jian Chen were to join, then with your strength, I believe that you will enter the top 10 for sure. Qing Yun spoke solemnly. Chapter 265, Departure. Jian Chen tilted his head in deep thought. Brother Qing Yun, you say to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries, one must be under the age of 50. Then, for those participating, how strong do you think they will be? Thinking about the question, Qing Yun replied, according to the past few gathering of the mercenaries, a good amount of the top 10 were all Earth Saint Masters. After all, to make a breakthrough into the Earth Saint Master realm is very difficult and perilous. To be able to reach the Earth Saint Master realm before the age of 50 is already an outstanding achievement. Then there won't be any Heaven Saint Master experts participating, correct? Jian Chen asked. With the help of the Azure and Violet Sword Spirit, Earth Saint Master experts were merely a small threat to him. In his heart, Jian Chen wasn't afraid of losing against any Earth Saint Master. The only problem to him would be a Heaven Saint Master. Of course not. Qing Yun shook his head. Heaven Saint Masters are considered experts among experts. That such a level is extremely difficult to cultivate to. How would it be possible for anyone under the age of 50 to reach such a realm? A genius that could reach such a level by then would be a once-in-a-thousand-year miracle. Even more so, even if they reach such a level before they are 50 years old, it doesn't mean they are able to participate. With the gathering of the mercenaries happening in such a short amount of time, it doesn't mean they would be at that level by then. Jian Chen nodded his head in understanding. What Qing Yun said was correct. Not every single talented mercenary would be able to participate. One had to be under the age of 50 by the time the gathering of the mercenaries happened. Even if a man hit the Heaven Saint Master realm before the age of 50, it didn't mean that he would make it in time for the gathering of the mercenaries. If they were born too late, then they would miss out on their chance. Even up to now, there had never been a person who had reached the realm of the Heaven Saint Master by the age of 34. Afterward, Qing Yun had explained a few more things relating to the gathering of the mercenaries and answered some questions. Although he had only talked about the rewards of the top 10 mercenaries, Jian Chen had been instantly interested. The 3 Tianhua sect men left, leaving Jian Chen and the 7 great saint masters behind. He had asked the 7 about the gathering of the mercenaries, but their knowledge about it had been very limited. They had indeed been able to explain a few things, but they had no valuable information on the prizes themselves, thus they were in the same boat as Qing Yun. Captain, while the gathering of the mercenaries is indeed a bicentennial event, the chances of dying are extremely high. I've heard the rate of survival is only 10%. Charkis tried to explain. I've also heard that plenty of Earth Saint Master experts attend the event. Their strength would be truly too strong. Duo Kong added on. Captain, if you truly wish to enter the gathering of the mercenaries, you must think about this thoroughly. Indeed, the prizes are extremely rich, but the odds of dying are extremely high as well. Practically every single talented mercenary in the Tian Yuan continent will attend. Mercenaries born with talent or in a good clan, those who have reached the Earth Saint Master realm, those with an unordinary skill or even battle skill, their strengths will be undoubtedly strong. Mo Tian spoke out seriously. To him, the gathering of the mercenaries wasn't anything special. This was something for those a part of the mercenary world would strive for, but not him. Of course I know the competition there will be fierce. If you do know however, where Mercenary City is, please tell me. Jian Chen answered them all calmly. After Qing Yun had informed him about the gathering of the mercenaries, Jian Chen had made up his mind. He absolutely had to go to this event. The allure of a heaven-tier battle skill was far too tempting. 3 days later, Jian Chen made his plans and left Wake City. He had given a task for the flame mercenaries to temporarily hunt and kill magical beasts for the money reward. For the sake of increasing their mercenary rank, they had to go all out. Before leaving, he left the flame mercenaries 1,000 purple coins and all the class 2 monster cores he didn't need for the flame mercenaries to be able to use for their daily life. Right now in this stage of development, a large amount of money was needed to advance. Because of the 7 great Saint Masters' leadership skills, Jian Chen had allowed them to take temporary command with a relieved heart. Jian Chen sat upon a class 2 magical beast as he continued down the path. It had already been a day and he had traveled 1,000 miles before finally coming to rest for the night at the second-class Lanfeng city. Entering the city, Jian Chen quickly found himself an inn to rest in. Then, he walked over to the dining section and sat down to begin eating. By now the sky was already getting dark and it was past the regular dinner time. Thus, the restaurant was not filled with many people. There was still 20 or so tables with only a few waitresses hurriedly running about. Suddenly, a heavily armored soldier leading a steel chariot came to a stop outside of the restaurant. Immediately, the armored soldier walked into the restaurant with a fierce step to his feet. Right on the middle of his chest plate was a single insignia that was unexpectedly the coat of arms of the Blue Wind Kingdom. "Waiter, bring out some food and prepare some tables for us." The armored man cried out loud in the restaurant. The other men with him then swept around the inside of the restaurant and looked at everyone else. "Right away. Gentlemen, if you would please come and sit. We will immediately bring out our best food and wine, please wait one moment." The waiter took a single look at the insignia on the soldier's chest before immediately becoming cordial as he ran to receive the guests. The rest of the armored men didn't say a word and instead walked toward a table to sit at. Even more men came streaming in afterward, there was a total of 100 men. As they filled up the restaurant, not a single one of them spoke a single word, indicating their discipline. Before these men had entered, the restaurant had a good amount of idle chatter going on, but the instant they had come in, the entire restaurant went quiet almost as if there was a strange feeling in the room now. Jian Chen looked at everyone slowly. The moment he saw the insignia on their chest plates, he could already guess their identities. The only ones that could wear the coat of arms of the Blue Wind Kingdom were the Blue Wind Kingdom army. Even then, only the elite troops of the army were to be able to wear it, the lower-ranking soldiers did not have the right to do so. Chapter 266, Desire to Fight. Shortly afterward, Jian Chen looked outside the window where several steel chariots had giant steel boxes on it. The soldiers all guarded the chariots very seriously and stared at whoever passed by them with an intense glare, causing everyone to look on with curiosity. Jian Chen's eyes hovered over the steel box with a curious stare. He felt that an extremely strong amount of energy was contained within those steel boxes. It was a familiar source of energy that Jian Chen had felt several times before, it was almost as if there was a large amount of monster cores piled up within. Could the box be filled with monster cores? Jian Chen muttered to himself. The very moment the thought flashed across his mind, he broke out into cold sweat. If the situation was like what he thought, then with there being so many steel boxes there, they should all be filled with monster cores as well. The number of monster cores would be a terrifyingly large amount. Looking away slowly, Jian Chen tried not to think about the matter any longer lest he attract the suspicion of the soldiers guarding the steel boxes. This time the Jessen Kingdom is done for. Although their strength is stronger than our Blue Wind Empire, but with 3 kingdoms simultaneously fighting against them, no matter how strong they are, the Jessen Kingdom cannot withstand 3 of the 4 great kingdoms' might. Suddenly, the low voice of one of the men rang out. Right, if they have anyone to blame, then they should blame themselves for having such a prosperous and fertile land all other countries have long since coveted. In the past, we all feared of the patriarch of the Changyang clan, so we didn't dare make a move. Now that the patriarch has long since been missing, I bet he's dead by now. With him gone, the Jessen Kingdom has no way of defending themselves from the rest of the 4 great kingdoms. The other soldier laughed. Third eldest, things aren't as easy as that. Although the patriarch of the Changyang clan may be dead, the Jessen Kingdom isn't weak in strength. They still have the 10 experts, every single one of them being a Heaven Saint Master. With that alone, they are stronger than our Blue Wind Kingdom many times over. Plus, who knows if they secretly have any more Heaven Saint Masters than just 10. That's right, not a single one of the 10 Heaven Saint Masters are a part of the Changyang clan. My teacher told me that the patriarch of the Changyang clan has a servant who is also at the Heaven Saint Master level, but this is a little-known secret that no one talks about. If my teacher's words are to be believed, then the Jessen Kingdom has at the very least 11 Heaven Saint Masters. That's 3 more than what our Blue Wind Kingdom has. If I were to pair the Blue Wind Kingdom up against the Jessen Kingdom, then the Blue Wind Kingdom would lose greatly. However, it's a shame for them that with the rest of the 4 great kingdoms combined, there are a total of 30 Heaven Saint Masters. I want to see how the Jessen Kingdom will face off against that. A few of the higher-ranking soldiers were talking among themselves. While the restaurant was filled to the brim with people, only that table was talking. So while they were chatting quietly, everyone else could clearly hear them. Barely able to keep himself composed, Jian Chen's face grew dark as he began to think to himself with worry. The Changyang clan was the very first family he had since he entered this world, so they held a special place in his heart. The amount of people he truly cared about wasn't many, but the people he definitely cared about would be eldest brother Changyang Hu and second sister Changyang Mingyue. Even more so, the one he definitely cared most was the one who cared about him since his birth, his mother Bai Yuntian. Just hearing about how 4 forces were uniting themselves to fight against the Jessen Kingdom, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel worried for his family in the Changyang clan. In fact, he felt a desperate desire to return back to the Jessen Kingdom, but that thought was instantly thrown out. He wasn't an impulsive person, he knew his own strength. With his azure and violet sword spirits, he may be able to deal with an Earth Saint Master, but up against a Heaven Saint Master expert, he would have no chance to even retaliate. Although he had never gone up against a Heaven Saint Master before, it wasn't hard to speculate the outcome with his strength. Bending down to take another bite of his meal, there was a clear stiffness to the actions. Jian Chen simply no longer had the same appetite from before. At that moment, a soldier that looked to be the commander of the soldiers spoke up, "Do you think the patriarch will show up? Although he has been gone for these years, it's most likely that he's dead, but in the end, all of this is still speculation. That patriarch has long since arrived at the pinnacle. After disappearing for 10 years, I bet that he is looking for a way to make a breakthrough." Another said. "Then will he be able to? If he does make that breakthrough, then we'll shut your mouth. That's impossible. From now on, don't say such things." Immediately, another person roared at him to be quiet. Jian Chen sat by the side eating his meal while also tilting his head to listen to the men talk. From their chat, Jian Chen had more or less found out some major piece of information. The most important fact was that 4 major kingdoms were joining together to fight against the Jessen Kingdom. It would take 2 or 3 years' worth of time since the 4 wanted to eliminate the Jessen Kingdom in a single spurt of action. Therefore, the war supplies and preparations had to be done in advance and expertly so. Furthermore, because of how the news had to be dispatched from soldier to soldier, the preparations would take even longer. After the meal, Jian Chen immediately headed back to his room to rest. Coincidentally, the same high-ranking soldier that had entered the restaurant with him had rented a room in the same inn. They hadn't gone to another inn for their entire troops, but instead each one had rented a place for the night at a regular-looking one instead of a fancy inn. That night, Jian Chen sat on his bed to meditate. Right below his window, Jian Chen could see several soldiers guarding the steel boxes on the chariots. Each one of them were guarding it with a cautious expression. By now, Jian Chen could already guarantee that the contents within the steel boxes were all monster cores. A war between the Blue Wind Kingdom and the Jesson Kingdom was on the verge of starting, so there would definitely be a huge need for magical crystal cannons. So the huge supply of monster cores underneath him was most likely being transported in order to supply the energy for the cannons. By early morning, the soldiers had already ate their breakfast before buying a large amount of rations and drinking water in the inn. Immediately, the soldiers began to lead the several chariots in a grandiose manner out of Lanfeng City. Not too far behind them, Jian Chen left the inn too and rode his Class 2 magical beast some distance away after them. There was no way he would allow those monster cores to be transported to the border of the Blue Wind Kingdom to be used against his Jesson Kingdom, despite not knowing how many experts the enemy had or how difficult this task would be. For the sake of his Changyang clan, this had to be done. From the chat he had eavesdropped on, when the war breaks out, the Changyang clan would most definitely be on the front lines. Chapter 267. A plan with poison. A large squadron of Blue Wind Kingdom soldiers with the coat of arms of the kingdom slowly marched as they led several chariots through the road. Their marching pace was orderly, and even their movements were perfectly synchronized with each other. Each one of the soldiers had a small fighting spirit leaking out from them. This was the spirit that only men who have been through countless of battles and have tempered themselves from their repeated close encounters with death could have. From this, it could be seen that these soldiers were the elite soldiers of the Blue Wind Kingdom. 5 kilometers behind, Jian Chen rode his Class 2 magical beast alongside a traveling merchant caravan. As he followed the soldiers, he began to think about just how he should put his plan into motion. There were roughly 200 soldiers in this squadron. While that wasn't many, they were still soldiers who had the very essence of discipline and skill drilled into them, thus making them harder to fight against. There was a small pocket of great Saint Masters while the rest were all Saint Master-leveled soldiers. Compared to the mob of Xia clansmen he had went up against, the soldiers' fighting strength was equal if not stronger. Jian Chen could even sense that the commanders of the soldiers were practically all Earth Saint Masters. After all, the amount of monster cores they were transporting as war preparations was by no means a small amount. It was naturally common sense for the Blue Wind Kingdom to dispatch their Earth Saint Master soldiers to guard them. By the afternoon, the blazing sun hung high in the sky and sent extremely hot rays down toward the earth. As the earth grew baking hot from the temperature, Jian Chen continued to travel with the merchant caravan for a little longer before ultimately separating from them to follow the soldiers. After separating from the merchants, Jian Chen began to follow the squad of soldiers by himself from afar. However, he had to increase the distance from 5 kilometers to 8 because they were now walking through a plain. There was rarely any grass to obstruct vision, so with the vast line of sight, it would be easy to get caught if he stood close by. In a flash, the day turned to night as Jian Chen followed the soldiers from afar, slowly making their way forward. There weren't any cities close by, so the soldiers had to find an empty piece of land to rest up for the night and start a fire for a meal. During this moment of rest, their guards would be on a strict vigilance. Every so often some soldiers riding on top of a magical beast would patrol the area. This had forced Jian Chen to be unable to make a move at all. Against such an elite force like this one where there were Earth Saint Masters mixed in, Jian Chen couldn't be stupid and dash in recklessly. By the following morning, the soldiers were already beginning to pack up with Jian Chen still following from behind. At this part of the road, there weren't many caravans, so it was every so often that the soldiers came across a group of mercenaries or merchants. Because of those infrequent appearances, none of the soldiers took notice of Jian Chen. At times, when there came a group of merchants following the same direction, Jian Chen would blend in with them for added coverage. At noon, Jian Chen had split ways from the merchant group once more and continued to follow them by himself. With the sun being stifling hot, the soldiers soon came to a stop by a nearby grove. Sitting in small groups on the grass, each one began to pull out their canteens to take a few sips of cold water. "This damn weather is too hot. All of my water is already almost gone. We have to get to a water source soon with this hot weather. A man can go 2 or 3 days without eating, but they cannot go without water." A high-ranking soldier spoke out. Another soldier by his side took out a map and began to inspect it closely. His eyes lit up as he pointed at a certain section of the map and spoke out, "Take a look at the symbol here, there's a river not too far away. We could go there and get some water." A few of the high-ranking soldiers immediately gathered together to take a look before commanding the rest of their soldiers, "Everyone, go task a person from your squad to go 3 kilometers southwest to fetch some water." "Yes, Commander." Immediately, a soldier collected everyone's canteen into his space belt and immediately set off on his Class 2 magical beast mount toward the water source. Soon enough, the soldier arrived at a small brook 2 meters wide in length. The water was so visible that the bottom of the brook could be seen. Dismounting from his mount, the soldier immediately began to take out all of the canteens from the space belt and started to scoop water into them. Suddenly at that moment, a silver ray of light flew from the tall grass at high speeds. Before the soldiers could even react, it slashed through his neck completely. The blood of the soldier splurted into the air as the head of the soldier was completely severed. His blood spilt into the river and began to dye the water with it. A white-robed youth appeared from the bushes. It was Jian Chen. Walking up to where the dead soldier was, Jian Chen thought for a moment before digging a hole to bury the soldier's body in. At the same time, the dirt where the blood had dripped on was covered up in order to prevent the smell from wafting into the air for a magical beast or humans to smell. After all that was done, Jian Chen washed off the blood from the armor before taking off his own clothes to put on the armor. Taking some herbs, he began to disguise himself to look like the recently deceased soldier before finally filling up the rest of the canteens with water. After all of the canteens were filled, Jian Chen immediately took out one of the venomous fangs of the silver-striped golden snake before plunging it into the water supply of all the canteens. The silver-striped golden snake was a highly venomous being. Its venom ranked within the top 3 of its rank, and the venom from its fang was the most venomous part of it. Unlike the venom from its poison sacs, if the fang was soaked in water for a brief moment, the water supply would become an extremely deadly poison. After plunging the fang into the water supply, Jian Chen repeated the process for all the other canteens. By the time he was done, all of the canteens were filled with the venom-polluted water, making them all extremely poisonous. After all of the canteens were filled with a good amount of venom, Jian Chen poured the rest of the venom into the high-ranking soldiers' canteens. Storing the fang back into his space belt, he began to inspect himself to see if there was anything out of place. Then, after making sure he didn't overlook anything, he mounted the dead soldier's mount and began to ride back to the grove. Chapter 268. A high success. Cautiously returning back to where the soldiers were resting, Jian Chen began to hand back the venom-filled water canteens with great care so that he wouldn't reveal the plan he was concocting. Jian Chen looked around himself silently as if observing his surroundings in the case that something went wrong, he would be able to react at a moment's notice. While the armor he wore made his appearance similar to the other soldiers, his voice was not something Jian Chen could change. None of the surrounding soldiers could sense anything amiss with Jian Chen. One after another, they took a water canteen and began to drink to their fill. "Si Chiafu, bring us our canteens." A high-ranking soldier beckoned to Jian Chen. Jian Chen looked at the soldier who called out to him from the corner of his eye. He instantly knew that this name that the soldier had said belonged to the soldier that Jian Chen had killed. Without hesitation, he pulled out a few elegant-looking canteens and walked toward them. His heart was prepared to make a move at any time. However, these soldiers didn't sense anything wrong with Jian Chen either. Taking the canteens from Jian Chen, they began to indulge themselves with the water. The venom of the silver-striped golden snake was tasteless and colorless, so there was no way for the soldiers to sense that anything was wrong. Furthermore, they wouldn't think that someone within the Blue Wind Kingdom would act against them in such a manner. Personally watching everyone take a sip from their canteens, Jian Chen's eyes glistened faintly. Right now, his plan was an overall success. The only thing left to do was to see just how intense the silver-striped golden snake's poison would be. While the venom within a silver-striped golden snake's fang was the most dangerous part, the silver-striped golden snake that Jian Chen had killed was still quite weak, so the venom within it was not at its most potent stage. Jian Chen's heart couldn't help but worry, wondering whether or not this venom would work on Earth Saint Masters. He didn't know. Si Qiafu, why aren't you saying anything? One of the 4 soldiers suddenly realized something was unusual with Si Qiafu. That was because on an everyday basis, the soldiers would always call out to greet them respectfully. Since Jian Chen hadn't said a single word since his water run, these high-ranking soldiers felt that something was off. Jian Chen's heart thumped as he instantly brought the light wind sword to his hand and stabbed toward the soldier. Jian Chen's execution was firm and did not waver from its path. He knew that faking anymore was useless since he couldn't say a word. The moment he said something, then all would be revealed. Thus, it would be best to take the initiative instead of being caught unprepared. PCH. The light wind sword pierced deeply into the soldier's throat as the tip of the blade went through the back of his neck with blood dripping from the sword. Despite the soldier being very strong, he had not been prepared for Jian Chen's attack. Combined with the extremely fast sword strike, it had all happened in an instant. In fact, it had happened so fast that it was beyond anyone's reaction at that moment. So this surprise attack had been pulled off almost effortlessly to kill an Earth Saint Master. This sudden development caused the other commanders to be stunned. After experiencing hundreds of battles and coming across many things, they were able to quickly react and flew at Jian Chen furiously. Immediately leaping backward, Jian Chen made use of his momentum to run further away. With the blistering heat, every single soldier had drank the venom-filled water. It was only a matter of time before it took effect, so he would just have to wait. Si Qiafu, you traitor! You dare to revolt? Si Qiafu, even after our kindness, you killed our commander Tianlin? I definitely won't forgive you. I didn't think that you would spy within our storm troops. How blind I am for not noticing, the commanders all cried out in fury as their faces grew unsightly from the rage. Both of their eyes grew red with anger as the previously resting soldiers stayed true to their title as elite soldiers and flew up without an order to immediately block Jian Chen's path. Jian Chen's eyes flashed dangerously as his middle great Saint Master strength was suddenly revealed. In an instant his light wind sword flew at every nearby soldier blocking his path, painting the road red with their blood. This group of elite soldiers were completely unable to block his path. Jian Chen quickly escaped from the confinement ring the soldiers had locked him in. Immediately flying a few steps backward, the remaining 4 commanders and the group of soldiers ran to chase him. Some had already mounted their magical beasts to give chase. Not even a few steps after beginning to chase Jian Chen, a good amount of the soldiers suddenly bent over with a painful grimace. Blood streamed down from their lips as their faces began to grow even more pale. Straight away, even more soldiers began to halt their footsteps as they fell to the ground in pain. Their mouths continued to spit out blood as the soldiers on top of their mounts fell down from them suddenly. Not long after, 200 soldiers were all on the ground with blood streaming from their lips. Their faces continued to be stuck in a painful grimace while some soldiers had already fell to the ground dead. "Commander, we've been poisoned," a soldier cried out hoarsely. Hearing this, the 4 commanders chasing Jian Chen suddenly stopped. Naturally, the moment they saw their men in such a miserable state, a look of shock overcame them. What's going on? How could you all be poisoned? Bastard, how could we have been poisoned? Just how was it done? It was Si Qiafu, only that renegade Si Qiafu could have done it. Si Qiafu, how brazen you are. No matter what, I will find you, and I'll skin you alive. The commanders all cried out in anger as they trembled with ashen faces. Si Qiafu had been a soldier they had carefully cultivated and cared for many years. They hadn't thought that he would betray them now in such an indiscriminate manner. If this were to get out that the most elite squadron of the Blue Wind Kingdom, the storm troops, had a soldier defect, they would become the laughing stock of the entire kingdom. Suddenly, one of the commander's face went white as he cried out in alarm, "Crap, I've been poisoned too. Damn it. I've been poisoned as well, it has to be from the water. What poison is this for it to be so strong? That bastard Si Qiafu. To dare poison us, I won't forgive him." The 4 commanders' faces all grew unsightly as they immediately tried to force the poison out of their systems. At that time, Jian Chen, who was running away from them at an extremely fast speed, suddenly turned around and slowly started to walk back to the commanders with his bloody light wind sword in hand. The 4 commanders opened their eyes and looked at Jian Chen with a cold stare. When their eyes landed upon the light wind sword, their eyes flashed for a moment before one of them roared, "You're not Si Qiafu, who are you?" Chapter 269, Poisoned. So you weren't Si Qiafu after all. It seems that Si Qiafu was killed by you, and then you pretended to be him in order to poison our water. Who are you and why did you poison our water? Have we done anything to warrant such hatred? The commanders immediately tried to stall for time in order to purify the venom within them. Jian Chen chuckled as he let out a huge breath of air in relief. At this, his plan was completed. Walking to where the 4 men were sitting 20 meters away, he smiled, "Fellow soldiers, how are you feeling right about now?" Seeing how Jian Chen hadn't moved to fight them just yet, the 4 commanders all were temporarily relieved. Since they were all poisoned, in order for them to flush out the poison, they would have to avoid battle. In the case that they fought, then the venom within would be harder to suppress and would be spread throughout the body at a faster rate, making it fatal. Who are you and why did you poison us? Are you an enemy of the Blue Wind Kingdom? One of the commanders growled. Jian Chen gave a small laugh casually, "Being an enemy of your Blue Wind Kingdom is an issue for later. The vast amount of monster cores you're supplying is to supply the war effort on the Jessen Kingdom, correct? So you're a spy from the Jessen Kingdom who infiltrated our kingdom?" A commander glared at Jian Chen with a look that made him resemble that of a bloodthirsty wolf ready to bite at him. "Ha, this soldier is quite smart. From this piece of information alone he has figured out that I am from the Jessen Kingdom. However, there is a critical flaw in your words. While I am a native of the Jessen Kingdom, I did not intentionally move into your Blue Wind Kingdom to be a spy. This matter today was nothing more than a coincidence." Jian Chen laughed happily. Now that the stronger commanders were all poisoned, the pressure on him had been lifted. "Humph, what a nice coincidence. Sire, why don't you take off the mask and let us see your true identity? Or are you a coward who refuses to show us?" A commander sneered. "I'm quite happy with this situation. Seeing how you are men who are about to die, why do you have so many demands? Seeing my face or not will not change a thing." Jian Chen laughed. "So the men of the Jessen Kingdom are apparently cowardly folks who don't dare to reveal who they are. I've seen it all today." A commander grunted. "PCH." Suddenly, a commander coughed out a mouthful of blood, causing his previously white face to be stained with some of his blood. His face was now as pale as paper as he cried out in shock, "What kind of poison is this to be so strong?" After that, the remaining 3 commanders all gave a small groan as their faces grew darker as well, blood slowly began making its way down from their lips. "What's wrong? Could it be that you're feeling the poison is growing stronger the longer time goes on? No matter how you try to move your saint force, the poison will not be suppressed by it. Seeing the miserable state the four commanders were in, Jian Chen's eyes couldn't but light up before courageously walking 10 meters within the four. Just who are you to have a poison this strong? A commander roared. There's no harm in telling you, I suppose. Have you heard of the silver-striped golden snake before? Jian Chen asked. What? Silver-striped golden snake. We've been poisoned with the venom from that snake. Impossible. Silver-striped golden snakes are already exceedingly rare and priceless within the Tianyuan continent. Just how would you be able to obtain its venom? The moment the commanders heard the name of the silver-striped golden snake, they couldn't keep their calm composure anymore. Each one had a terrified look on their faces before giving in to their despair. The poison of the silver-striped golden snake was one of the most poisonous things on the continent. Its poison was so fierce that even Saint Force wouldn't be able to suppress it. Medicinal drugs or herbs would be useless as well. It was only under the control of a radiant Saint Master that the poison of a silver-striped golden snake would be able to be controlled and hopefully cured. Just as these commanders lost hope, Jian Chen shot forward with his light wind sword ready to stab. Immediately, the sword found a home within one of the commander's throat, killing him. Without hesitating, Jian Chen pulled out his sword and dashed toward another. Be careful, everyone. The remaining 3 commanders immediately shook themselves back to consciousness as the commander who had been stabbed by Jian Chen fell to the floor. One of the commanders immediately swung his broadsword at Jian Chen while the other 2 brought out their saint weapons before following suit. Jian Chen gave a cold smile. He was not afraid of the 3 Earth Saint Masters any longer. His light wind sword flashed 3 times, striking against the other's sword simultaneously. The sounds of 3 metallic clangs could be heard as Jian Chen's sword slapped against the 3 commanders. Immediately, the 3 saint weapons of the Earth Saint Masters had a finger-sized nick in them. The 3 Earth Saint Masters all spat out blood as their faces scrunched up in pain. With their saint weapons damaged, they too felt the damage. How is this possible? We can sense that your strength isn't that of an Earth Saint Master, so how can you even damage our saint weapons? A commander cried out in terror. The other 2 commanders by his side all looked thunderstruck at this situation. How strange, be careful of his saint weapon, it somehow has some sort of different power within it. One of the commanders could detect the faint glow of the azure and violet light within the sword. Careful now, don't let his saint weapon hit yours or you will be forced into a terrible state. The commanders were stronger than the patriarch of the Xia clan. Quickly, they could deduce what had just happened and quickly flew at Jian Chen once more. Jian Chen's attacks covered a larger area than before. Each strike was either aimed at the saint weapons in the 3 commanders' hands or at their throats. Without a doubt, the 3 commanders were afraid of the azure and violet sword chi, so they were quite restricted in their movements, which limited their full potential. The 2 sides continued to fight each other at lightning-quick speeds for a moment when a large splurt of blood abruptly flowed out from the neck of one of the commanders. Jian Chen's sword had cut into the neck of one of the commanders and severed his head, causing everyone to be absolutely horrified. Duo Ji. The remaining 2 commanders' eyes nearly burst out of their heads as they howled in anguish. Jian Chen didn't allow them to rest and immediately flew at them before stabbing at one of the commanders. Chapter 270, Advanced Tier Magical Crystal Cannons. We've been poisoned with the silver-striped golden snake's venom, we can't even escape now because of him. A commander roared. Abandoning his attempt to try and suppress the poison within, the Earth Saint Master's Saint Force exploded outward with a fiery red color. With a fire-like essence that scorched the ground, some of the nearby grass had almost instantly been incinerated. The other commander knew that escape was unlikely now, so with a look of determination, a cyan-colored light exploded from his body as well. All of the surrounding air around him began to grow lively as it was starting to cycle around him. I'll let you taste my fiery sword's might then. The fire attribute Saint Force commander roared. The sword in his hand instantaneously turned red as it became as hot as a branding iron. As he slashed down at Jian Chen, a fierce blaze accompanied it with a force as heavy as a stone. The other commander's sword instantly flew toward Jian Chen's chest in hopes of stabbing through it. The speed of the sword was so fast that Jian Chen had almost no hope to evade the sword. Against these two unavoidable swords, Jian Chen's light wind sword immediately shot forward, both swords with an azure and violet sword Qi-yin wrapping around it. Ding! The light wind sword made contact with the sword of the fire attribute commander, but even with the hardness of steel and stone thanks to his fire saint force, the commander's sword couldn't help but gain another jaggedy gap. Jian Chen felt some blood come out from his mouth from the explosive strength of the commander. Despite this man being an Earth Saint Master with no battle skill, he couldn't help but be damaged still. The Earth Saint Master with the fire-like essence surrounding him like a protective shield cried out in shock once more. Since his saint force was linked to him, his body had once more gained another serious injury. At the same time, the sword of the wind attribute commander had entered Jian Chen's chest before exiting through his back. Jian Chen gave an angry shout and ignored the pain blossoming in his chest. The light wind sword knocked aside the fire attribute commander's sword and instantly pierced through the commander's heart. With the sharp sword Qi within the light wind sword, the commander's heart had instantly been shredded. Shortly afterward, Jian Chen immediately pulled out his sword and with a haze of azure and violet light, the light wind sword instantly flew toward the last remaining commander. With a cold snort, the commander twisted the sword within Jian Chen's chest, enlarging the wound. At the same time, a burst of pure saint force entered Jian Chen's body to wreak havoc before pulling out his sword and jumping backward. With a grunt, Jian Chen spat out some blood. This pure saint force injected into his body had been extremely refined. With it fighting against his own saint force, it had already destroyed a part of his vitality since he couldn't contain it. At this moment, the azure and violet sword spirits residing within Jian Chen shook. The pure saint force that had invaded Jian Chen's body suddenly caught the interest of the two sword spirits. The sword spirits immediately charged forward and instantly the pure saint force was swallowed up by them without a trace. With the danger within his body gone, Jian Chen didn't hesitate any longer and flew toward the commander. His light wind sword became a silver glow of light as it flashed forward. The poison within the remaining commander had already reached an extremely lethal dose. His face was unnaturally dark, but when he saw how Jian Chen was still charging for him combined with how the other commanders who had been his equal in strength had been killed, his only desire now was to escape. If this goes on any longer, it doesn't matter whether or not if I kill him or he kills me first. Even if I kill him, then the poison within my body will undoubtedly kill me extremely fast and everything will be useless. With a spy of the Jessen kingdom infiltrating our borders and coming after the monster cores we're transporting, this cannot do. Even if I die, I cannot die in such an unknown way like this. His Majesty must be made aware of this matter. The commander thought to himself. Enwrapped within his wind attribute Saint Force, he flew at a very fast speed that not even a trace of him could be seen. This way, Jian Chen wouldn't be able to chase after him. If a wind attribute Earth Saint Master was determined on running away, then his speed would most definitely outrank Jian Chen's. Up until now, there had been 5 Earth Saint Masters tasked with transporting the monster cores, 4 had been killed and the only remaining one had been dealt a fatal blow. Unable to continue on with his internal injuries, Jian Chen walked over to the dead corpses of the other commanders and extended his hand to grab onto their space belts and space rings. Then dragging his injured body over to where the chariots were, Jian Chen immediately set about collecting them all without leaving a trace and would leave straight after. Coming up to the first box, Jian Chen cut apart the lock on it before throwing open the cover to reveal the contents within. The entirety of the box was filled to the brim with Class 1 and Class 2 monster cores. So there was this many monster cores hidden inside? I can count nearly 1,000 of these. Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat as he surveyed the sight in front of him. Despite all of these monster cores being of an inferior grade, there was still an enormous amount of them. Moreover, this was only just one box. There was a total of 15 chariots that each had 2 to 4 boxes. If every single one of those boxes contained monster cores, then the total amount of them was an astronomical number that no one would be able to count. Suddenly, the azure and violet sword spirits within his dantian suddenly trembled and a message entered Jian Chen's mind. The azure and violet sword spirits wishes to absorb the energy within these monster cores. Jian Chen realized in an instant what the sword spirits had wanted, and without hesitation, he immediately extended his hand the monster cores. Although these inferior-grade monster cores could be sold for a decent sum of money, but for the sake of helping the sword spirits heal, his desire to help the sword spirits was stronger as long as it wasn't his own energy. Because of his current goal of fighting against Earth Saint Masters, this was his only chance. Just as Jian Chen's hand was over the box of monster cores, an extremely large force of attraction could be felt from the swords within his dantian. The 1,000 monster cores within the box began to emit a faint glow. As the energy began to condense, an essence of energy could suddenly be seen as it flowed from the monster cores into Jian Chen's arm to his dantian. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as he felt the extremely large amount of energy flow into his arm, causing it to numb a bit from the pain. The speed at which the sword spirits were absorbing the energy was extremely fast, so in a brief moment, all of the energy within the monster cores had all been completely absorbed. Jian Chen immediately checked up on the situation with the sword spirits only to be disappointed. Even after completely absorbing all of the monster cores within the box, there had been no change at all with the sword spirits. It seems that in order for the sword spirits to heal, the amount of monster cores needed is far beyond what I had imagined. Jian Chen thought to himself with a bitter smile on his face. The appetites of the sword spirits were voracious, and he had no idea just how much was enough to make them satisfied. After that, Jian Chen opened up the boxes one by one. Each box contained both Class 1 and Class 2 monster cores, but the energy within the monster cores had then been greedily absorbed by the sword spirits. After the 17th and 18th box, Jian Chen threw open the lid only to discover that there were several thousand Class 3 monster cores inside. From this box, Jian Chen only grabbed several hundred cores for his own personal cultivation, while the rest were immediately absorbed by the sword spirits. Afterward, Jian Chen walked over to another 5 chests, all of which contained Class 3 monster cores as well. This made Jian Chen extremely happy, but instead of taking it for himself, he had the sword spirits absorb all of them for the sake of the sword spirits hopefully growing stronger. After absorbing all of the monster cores, the sword spirits within Jian Chen's dantian finally began to undergo a change. The previously weak glows of light suddenly grew brighter at the intensity of a single lantern that flickered on and off. At this change, Jian Chen was overjoyed. Immediately using the azure and violet sword qi, Jian Chen could tell that the quality of it had gotten richer. Jian Chen walked over to an even larger steel box that was around 4 meters long. Opening it up, Jian Chen could see a jet-black iron rod half a meter wide. Around the iron rod was cotton to soften the insides and the outside. Seeing such a familiar piece of iron rod, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. Immediately opening up the nearby steel boxes, he discovered that they had also contained various mysteriously shaped objects with cotton packaging. Seeing these objects, a scene flashed within Jian Chen's mind that caused Jian Chen to instantly be shocked. This is a magical crystal cannon. Jian Chen had seen what a magical crystal cannon looked like from his time in Wake City, so he was not unfamiliar with their looks. Thus when he saw the components wrapped up in these boxes, Jian Chen knew that they were for the construction of a magical crystal cannon. The primary tier magical crystal cannons back in Wake City were only 2 meters long, and the middle tier magical crystal cannons were 3 meters long. These ones are 4 meters long. This must be an advanced tier magical crystal cannon. Looking at the cannons, Jian Chen quickly guessed that these were much stronger than the ones from before with a look of joy. Advanced tier magical crystal cannons were something Jian Chen had never seen before. But from what he had heard, advanced tier magical crystal cannons required Class 5 monster cores and could shoot up to 20 kilometers away. These could kill an Earth Saint Master if hit and were weapons of mass destruction. As long as one had an advanced tier magical crystal cannon, a primary saint would be able to kill an Earth Saint Master. If there were a multitude of those cannons, then even killing a group of Earth Saint Masters would be possible. Jian Chen's eyes grew fiery as he looked at the items in front of them. With this, it could be said that he was in possession of weapons with an incomparably strong might. If any strong faction were to offend him, then he would be able to employ these cannons from up to 20 kilometers away to destroy their headquarters. Chapter 271, Returning to Huang Village. Jian Chen continued to open up the remaining boxes only to never see another monster core. That was because within every single box after that, only the components of the cannons could be found in every shape and size. However, only 2 of the 4-meter-long barrels could be found. From this, Jian Chen could deduce that only 2 cannons could be assembled from this. However, the discovery of these 2 advanced-tier cannons had made Jian Chen extremely happy. The one worrying thing was that he had no idea how to assemble the magical crystal cannons, or what part did what. To him, all these parts may as well have been scrap iron. Forget it. It's best not to worry about this for now. I'll wait for a time when I can learn how to assemble the cannons. Jian Chen muttered to himself. After that, he collected all of the pieces within the boxes and stored them within his space ring. Then, he mounted his Class 2 magical beast and rode away from this place, leaving behind the soldiers who had died to the poison of the silver-striped golden snake. Despite the venom of the fang not yet being at its most potent state, it was still a poison that was highly fatal and thus was extremely dangerous. In such a short amount of time, these soldiers had all been killed without a single survivor besides the commander who had run away. Jian Chen rode the magical beast at a rapid pace for half a day before a small forest could be seen 500 kilometers away from where he had killed the soldiers. Finally stopping at the forest, Jian Chen began to control the Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. Jian Chen's innate spirit was quite formidable. His mastery of the Radiant Saint Force was at least 2 ranks higher than the previous Radiant Saint Master in Wake City. In just a mere 2 hours, he was back to full health. Afterward, Jian Chen found a stream and leaped into it to wash himself. I didn't think that one of them would manage to escape. Since he was a wind attribute Earth Saint Master, there's nothing I could do if he wanted to escape since my speed is much slower than his. Jian Chen muttered to himself in the river water. It's a good thing I didn't reveal my identity. In the case that the commander spreads the news, then my identity in Wake City would immediately be found out. In that case, the flame mercenaries would be completely exterminated. At that thought, there was a small sense of fear, but his identity had been kept a secret, so he could rejoice to himself. After changing his clothes for a clean pair, Jian Chen took the 5 space rings from under the tree nearby and began to inspect the items within. One of the 5 space rings was from the patriarch of the Xia clan while the other 4 were from the recently deceased commanders. The patriarch of the Xia clan had a pile of purple coins that numbered over 1,000. There were several other piles of assortments of varying value hidden within. Furthermore, there were 100 Class 4 monster cores, several hundred Class 3 monster cores, and an incomparably large amount of Class 2 monster cores. All of a sudden, when Jian Chen saw one of the contents within the space ring, his heart skipped a beat. Taking out the item from the space ring, Jian Chen looked at the simple-looking book right in front of him. The pages of the book were quite thick and were even starting to yellow. Some tears and rips from the passage of time could be seen on them. Water manipulation. The 2 words were written on the cover of the simple-looking back. As Jian Chen slowly flipped through the pages of the book, an excited look grew on his face. Unfortunately, the battle skill recorded within this manual was only that of a human tier battle skill. Furthermore, this was something that only water-attributed Saint Force cultivators could use. Forget it, this isn't all that strong. In the case that the flame mercenaries grow stronger, then this battle skill can be a reward of some sort. Jian Chen sighed. Looking into the next space ring, a large pile of bright monster cores greeted his eyes. Jian Chen had a great big smile on his face as he realized that there were over 1,000 Class 4 monster cores in this space ring. With so many Class 4 monster cores, this must be another energy supply for the magical crystal cannons. Jian Chen muttered with his heart pounding. The profit he had earned today was extremely large. Opening up the third space ring, Jian Chen discovered that it was filled with Class 4 monster cores. Aside from that, both of the space rings had a purple card along with some other daily life items. When Jian Chen opened up the last space ring, he saw a small fist-sized monster core laying in the space within. This monster core was a Class 5 monster core. Jian Chen's body went rigid as he looked at this monster core with joy. He understood that a Class 5 monster core was a precious treasure that the patriarch of the Xia clan and the Tianhua sect wouldn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles to purchase. With there being around 100 Class 5 monster cores, Jian Chen couldn't believe his eyes almost. The profit he had gained today was truly massive. Jian Chen immediately began to count the amount of Class 5 monster cores. By the time he had finished counting them all, his heart had nearly leaped out of his throat. In total, there were around 232 Class 5 monster cores. Jian Chen tried to quell his trembling body. If one had all these Class 5 monster cores, then they would be able to power up the advanced tier cannons and shoot them. With this amount of Class 5 monster cores, it was even possible to shoot 200 times and completely level a first-class city. After half a day, Jian Chen had finally began to calm down as he collected the rest of the spoils before continuing on the road on his mount. A day later, Jian Chen had stopped right in front of the entrance to the mountains. Abandoning his mount, Jian Chen proceeded into the mountains on foot. This mountain range was rather ordinary looking, but the world essence was withering slightly, causing only wild beasts to be born. Occasionally, there would be a Class 1 or Class 2 magical beast, but nothing higher. The dense foliage covered the surrounding area along with the treetops whose branches and leaves obscured the sky above so that even the mountains themselves were hidden. This mountain range didn't have the malicious atmosphere like the magical beast mountain range. With Jian Chen's memory of the area, he quickly made his way back to Huang village where he had left roughly a month ago. Jian Chen swept across the site of Huang village with excitement. When Roscoe had seen him, he immediately gathered everyone in the village to celebrate. That night, the entire Huang village gathered to celebrate Jian Chen's successful return. The injuries on Ming Dong's body had finished healing half a month ago. Thankfully, he had remained behind in Huang village and continued to cultivate to improve his strength diligently. Occasionally, he would follow some of the other men from the village to go hunting. With his Saint Master's strength, he was easily able to kill some wild beasts. With him living within Huang village, the entire village was able to eat more often and more luxuriously. Thus, Ming Dong quickly rose to a popular status within the village. Not a single person in Huang village didn't respect and admire his strength. Chapter 272, Tianqin Clan. Later that night, Jian Chen and Ming Dong gathered together within a small room. Seeing how much better you're looking now, you must be fully recovered. Jian Chen commented as he smiled at Ming Dong. Nodding his head, Ming Dong replied, "It was all thanks to the medicine you left behind. Otherwise, it would have taken much longer for me to fully recover. Thanks to that, I was able to cultivate by myself peacefully and increase my strength by a large amount." Jian Chen nodded with praise, "Not bad, you're a peak Saint Master now. With your cultivation talent, I suspect that within a month, you'll make the breakthrough to become a great Saint Master. As long as there is enough monster cores, then I'll definitely be able to reach the great Saint Master realm by 3 months at most." Ming Dong's face was filled with determination. He couldn't help but feel proud of his training talent. Whenever he thought of Jian Chen, the prideful look on his face was instantly wiped away. Although his own talent at cultivation was beyond most people, Ming Dong knew that there was an extremely large difference in talent between him and Jian Chen. Jian Chen didn't look a day older than 20, but he had already reached the realm of the great Saint Masters. He himself was already 27 years old, several years older than Jian Chen, yet his strength was only at the peak Saint Master level. With this, it would be more accurate to measure between the heavens and the earth. Jian Chen held out a dozen Class 4 monster cores to Ming Dong. "Continue to increase your strength then. You need not to worry about obtaining any monster cores, just leave all of that to me, but what you need to bear in mind is that cultivation to increase your strength is a step-by-step process. If you try to rush ahead recklessly, then who knows what hidden dangers in the future will affect your progress. Knowing how generous Jian Chen was, Ming Dong didn't dare to argue. Accepting the monster cores handed to him, he said, "Don't worry, I am well aware of this." Good. Ah. Are you aware of the gathering of the mercenaries that happens twice every 100 years? Jian Chen suddenly asked. Ming Dong nodded his head. I've wandered around for countless of months, so the gathering of the mercenaries is something I've heard mentioned before. They mention it as a relatively fierce competition, and those with a low level of strength would do best to not participate. Otherwise, they would find it hard to escape with their lives intact. Jian Chen nodded in approval. I've heard that the chances of dying are quite high, but the rewards offered are also endlessly rich, causing all mercenaries to be driven mad by them. Hearing this, Ming Dong's heart skipped a beat for a moment as he stared with concentration at Jian Chen. Don't tell me that you wish to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries. Jian Chen didn't bother to deny it. Correct, that is my plan. It's best not to go. Ming Dong exclaimed. Although I don't know much about the gathering of the mercenaries, I've heard that it is filled with danger. If one isn't at the Earth Saint Master realm, then they shouldn't participate or risk dying. Jian Chen chuckled without a care in the world. Don't worry. Although I am not an Earth Saint Master, I can still protect my own life. A heaven-tier battle skill is far too tempting to let me pass up on it. Ming Dong's face grew incomparably serious as he stared at Jian Chen for a while. Finally, after confirming that Jian Chen wasn't joking, he let out a single breath of air. It seems that you are resolute on participating in the gathering of the mercenaries. Correct, I am determined to go. Tomorrow I will depart from the village, you should go with me. Huang village is far too peaceful and that may become ingrained in you if you stay here long enough. Fine then. I was beginning to get restless the past few days. If it weren't for me waiting for you to come back, I would have left this place long ago. By the second morning, Jian Chen and Ming Dong both notified the village of their departure. Leaving behind a large amount of food, they left the village. In regards to Ming Dong leaving, the entire Huang village was quite reluctant to see him leave, but they all knew that Ming Dong wouldn't be content to continue living in the village. He would leave the village sooner or later. As long as he treated the world as a place to travel and explore, he would not want to stay where he was now. The village could only hope that both Jian Chen and Ming Dong would come and visit whenever they had time in the future. After all, Huang village was deep within the mountain range that was isolated from the rest of the continent. Travelers here were far and few. 2 days later, Jian Chen and Ming Dong both finally walked out of the mountains, and with another day of traveling, both men finally arrived at a second-class city. From far away, they could see a stream of merchants and mercenaries flowing in and out of the city. The amount of soldiers at the city gates numbered around 300, with each one of them inspecting both merchants and mercenaries alike. Obstructing their paths, they would talk for a moment before letting them pass. Even the walls were filled with troops of elite soldiers from the city who looked down on everyone with intense glares. What's going on? Just why are there so many soldiers? I don't recall it being like this before. I can only assume that something major has happened. I was in Antelope City yesterday and the guards there were plenty as well. The entire city has soldiers moving about everywhere as if they're searching for someone. What an uproar, don't you all know? My cousin in a nearby city is the captain of the soldiers, but I heard that a spy from the Jessen Kingdom has infiltrated our Blue Wind Kingdom. Even the 300 soldiers of the elite storm troop were killed. The spy took all of the monster cores and ran, making even His Majesty furious. Right now, every single person in the kingdom is looking for the spy. Many people were talking among each other by the gates with great pleasure. Though, as Jian Chen heard this topic, he couldn't help but smile coldly. It was almost definite that the loss of all those monster cores was an unbearable loss for the kingdom. After waiting for half the day, everyone in front of them had entered the city, making it Ming Dong and Jian Chen's turn to be inspected. Halt, what is your purpose here? Immediately, a few soldiers stopped the two and asked them a question. Jian Chen gave a faint smile. Fellow brothers, we are two mercenaries that wish to stay here for a while and replenish our essentials. Jian Chen held his mercenary emblem for the soldiers to see. The soldiers inspected the emblem given to them for a small moment before looking over at the two mercenaries. You two don't look like spies, you may enter. Jian Chen and Ming Dong both walked into the city unobstructed. Afterward, Jian Chen walked down the streets only to realize that portraits had been plastered everywhere throughout the alleys. The person described on the portrait was similar to Jian Chen in stature, but the strange thing was that his appearance was not described at all. With a portrait like this, just how are we supposed to find the spy? We don't even know what this spy looks like, so how could we find him? We don't know what the spy even looks like, even if he was standing right in front of us, we wouldn't know. AI, why couldn't they just draw up a portrait so we would know just what we need to look for? With so many people looking at the portrait, everyone could only grumble at the descriptions on it. Ha, the ruler of the Blue Wind Kingdom truly wishes to find me with a portrait like this? This is nothing more than a fool's journey. There are many people with a physique like this, hell, the entire street is filled with people that match such a description. Could they want to just capture every single person with this description? Jian Chen chuckled to himself as he looked at the portrait. Right, without knowing the appearances of this spy, this portrait is nothing more than decoration. Ming Dong replied by his side. Leaving the area, they both walked deeper into the city where plenty of magical beast stables were gathered near the marketplace. The magical beast stables were an unfrequented place. Almost as if it were a big shack, there were only 30 or so magical beast mounts laying about. The magical beast mounts at the stables were of the more docile type without the ability to fight at all. Their prices reflected this because they were quite steep, making very few people unable to afford one, thus, very little people came by the stables. Within the stables, Jian Chen had spent around 500 purple coins in order to purchase 2 Class 3 magical beasts adept in long-distance traveling before going to an inn to rest. By the next morning, they were ready to leave the city. Right now there was only half a year until the gathering of the mercenaries began. In such a short time span, the two would have to hurry up and travel without any breaks. The distance between Mercenary City to where they were currently at was far too wide. They would have to cross multiple kingdoms and travel hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Jian Chen and Ming Dong both rode their Class 3 magical beasts off on the official roads at a rapid pace. Dirt and mud splattered behind their trails like a long dragon made of dirt. Many merchants and mercenaries cried out in annoyance as Jian Chen and Ming Dong blew past them. After seeing their Class 3 magical beast, they knew better than to provoke them. 2 days later, Jian Chen and Ming Dong left the Blue Wind Kingdom and continued on their journey. During the daytime, they would travel as much as they could while at night the two would continue to cultivate. They continued this pattern for half a month, and like this, they made their way past the Third Kingdom and had already traveled several thousand kilometers. In the plains, Jian Chen and Ming Dong stopped by the side of the road to rest for a while. Jian Chen held a map in his hand as he tried to make sure of his position and destination. Ming Dong, judging from the symbols on the map, there's a first-class city 50 kilometers ahead. We should head there and rest for a while and see if there's an even better magical beast mount to be found. Jian Chen mentioned without lifting his head from the map. Opening up his canteen to take a sip, Ming Dong replied, "Good. Since you're not lacking money, then changing our mounts will be a good thing. Although a Class 3 magical beast is quite fast, if we continued on to Mercenary City like this, then it'll take us another 2 or 3 months." Shortly after stopping, the travel-weary Jian Chen and Ming Dong entered the city called Wallerant City. Wallerant City was a first-class city that expanded over a large area. The entire city was filled with bustling activities with streets so wide that several chariots could ride through them at the same time. There were multiple restaurants of varying sizes by the streets with merchants and mercenaries walking together, chatting. Walorant City was fairly decent, with its wide streets with no trash or garbage to be seen. It was far more orderly. Wake City in comparison had many mercenaries with their stalls cluttered together by the side of the streets. From this, the difference between a first-class city and a third-class city could clearly be seen. Suddenly, a large sound could be heard coming from behind. At this, Jian Chen turned his head to look only to see a group of brightly dressed transporters carry a luxurious chariot down the street. On the chariot, a yellow-colored banner could be seen waving high in the air with the word Qin written on it. Chapter 273, Tianqin Clan, 2, Move aside. Anyone in our path should make way. A few men cried out from the very front as the people in the streets moved toward the side. It's the Tianqin Clan, what's the matter with them? Come on, let's get out of the way, we can't afford to cause trouble with them. It's the Tianqin Clan, hurry and get out of the way. If you block their way, then who knows what might happen to you. Both merchants and mercenaries alike hurriedly made their way to the side of the streets, leaving behind an empty street for the Tianqin Clan to walk through. As soon as the carriage passed through, the men immediately walked back onto the middle of the street. Jian Chen and Ming Dong both drew close to the edge of the streets as well. However, since everyone had already crowded against the side, the majority of the area was already occupied. So Jian Chen and Ming Dong had no other choice but to stand on the outermost area, which had made them stick out just enough to be noticed. Out of the way, I said, did you not hear me, or are you courting death? The forerunner cried out as he glared at Jian Chen. With a flick of his wrist, a single black whip flew toward Ming Dong. Jian Chen's eyes flashed dangerously at this. How insolent of the Tianqin clansmen! Just as Jian Chen prepared to move, Ming Dong had took a step back and grabbed at the whip. With a fierce pull, the owner of the whip flew off from his mount and landed fiercely on the ground. Halt! With that, the entire Tianqin clan's fleet suddenly came to a screeching halt. Every single movement was almost identical and orderly, just like the formation of an elite squadron. Outrageous! What youngster dares to block the path of the young lady of the Tianqin clan? Men, arrest him! Another man cried out in rage as he pointed at Ming Dong. Yes! A person volunteered as he charged at Ming Dong. Ming Dong's face grew dark as he sent an apologetic glance to Jian Chen. His previous action had been completely involuntary, nor did he really think about the consequences. It was only now did he realize that he had just offended a powerful clan. Jian Chen laughed at the worried Ming Dong. Don't be afraid, do what you will. Ming Dong nodded his head slightly and then leaped down from his mount. A cyan-colored glow began to emanate from his body before he began to fight the person coming at him. None of his attackers were using their saint weapons, so he had lashed out with his own fists as well. Jian Chen looked at Ming Dong with a look of surprise before revealing a bright smile on his face. I didn't think that not only is Ming Dong a genius at cultivation, but that he would also be a wind-attributed saint master. With the help of his wind saint force, Ming Dong was extremely fast. As he and the others began to fight, those attackers had already began to be pushed back. To even attack our guards, your death won't absolve your crimes. At this fight, a large group of men from the Tianqin clan immediately thundered out loud. A middle-aged man flew down from his mount with a surge of saint force. He flew at Ming Dong to attack him. With a sneer, Jian Chen brought out his light wind sword in an instant and flew toward the middle-aged man to strike at the blade in his hand. Ding! The light wind sword and the man's newly formed battle axe collided in mid-air with a loud clang. Immediately, the sword gleamed past the axe and with a bright ray of silver light, the sword swept past the man's throat. Falling back to the ground, the middle-aged man's face was extremely ugly to look at as he looked at Jian Chen with shock. Reabsorbing his sword, Jian Chen cupped his hands together and spoke, "Sire, this was the fault of my brother here, but that is not a crime punishable by death. This one hopes that Sire looks the other way this one time." Jian Chen's voice wasn't rude, but it wasn't polite either. The Tianqin clan were extremely powerful within the first-class Walleran city. While Jian Chen wasn't afraid of such a powerful clan, he didn't wish to offend them at this given time. The man looked at Jian Chen with shock and a hint of fear as his face began to pale, but he did not say anything. Just what has happened? A sweet-sounding voice could be heard. The voice was pleasant to hear, just like the sounds of a skylark. Hearing this, Jian Chen averted his gaze to look at the white-robed, veiled woman who walked out from her carriage. Her appearance was covered by a white-colored gauze so that it was completely impossible to see her visage. "Second miss, please hurry back to your carriage, we'll take care of this matter straight away." A guard immediately spoke out to her respectfully. The female looked at Jian Chen and Ming Dong for a small moment before speaking gently. "While I was inside the carriage, I could hear everything that happened outside quite clearly. This matter was our fault completely. Guards, hurry up and apologize." Hearing this, the guard fighting Ming Dong hesitated for a moment, but after seeing Jian Chen's strength, he could only utter a small apology. Jian Chen waved his hand casually to say something apologetic in return before preparing to leave the place. At that moment, the sounds of hooves could be heard as a blue-robed middle-aged man came riding forward with his Class 3 magical beast mount. "Second sister, you've been gone for so long without telling your older brother, so what better than for your older brother to come greet you?" The man rode at a decent pace for a moment before stopping right in front of the Tianqin clan's carriage. The youth was of a sturdy build and wore blue robes. Underneath his robes, his black pants could be seen with his hair reaching down to his shoulder. From his appearances, he looked to be 30 years old. "Look, it's the young lord of Tianqin clan. How lucky we are today to see him. With how rarely he walks out of the Tianqin clan compound, I didn't think he would show up right now. I've heard the young lord of the Tianqin clan is a genius at cultivation. With the help of the Tianqin clan's entire strength, he was able to make the breakthrough to become a great saint master at the young age of 28. Now that he's over 30 years old, I don't know just how strong the young lord is. My father is one of the guards for the Tianqin clan. I've heard him say that in battle, the young lord is extremely violent. Every day the young lord would fight against the captain of the guards, but the captain would always come out with a splitting headache afterward." At the appearance of this youth, the entire group of spectators began to whisper among themselves. The young lord of the Tianqin clan pretended not to listen to these words and looked at the lady with concern. "Second sister, are they trying to bully you? Tell your older brother and I'll fight them for you." The moment after the young lord spoke, one of the guards hurriedly spoke out. "Young lord, while we were guiding the second Miss Chariot, these two men came up to obstruct our path. Even more so, they had the courage to injure one of our guardians and underestimate our clan." Hearing this, the young lord cast a dangerous glare at Jian Chen before growling, "Just who are you to provoke my Tianqin clan? Do you truly think my clan to be that easy to bully? Guardian." The moment she heard the man speak, she had a displeased look on her face and turned to her older brother to speak gently. "Elder brother, the situation is not like that. Don't trouble them too much. The cause of this situation is because of these guardians with no etiquette." After hearing his sister speak, the tension on the young lord's face began to ease up before immediately coming back with a fiercer glow in his eyes. "It doesn't matter who's in the wrong, but you blocked the path of my second sister. This isn't something I'll let off so lightly. Let me fight with you. If you can beat me, then this matter will be resolved." A surge of saint force went to the young lord's hand, instantly forming a giant blade. In an instant, he flew off his horse and charged at Jian Chen. Jian Chen brought out his saint weapon as well and began to fill the air with sword chi near the charging young lord. The sounds of weapons smashing against weapon could be heard clashing against each other. After a series of rounds, Jian Chen had realized that the young lord was already at the peak Great Saint Master level, making him slightly stronger than Jian Chen. However, Jian Chen's sword was fast enough for the young lord to have to commit most of his efforts to dodging the sword. In another 3 exchanges, Jian Chen clearly had the advantage over the young lord. "Armorize!" the young lord roared. A large amount of brown-colored light began to exude from his body before forming an earthen-like layer of armor over his body. From the outer appearance, it looked like an actual set of armor. With the constant flowing glow of Earth Saint Force, the armor looked to be almost unbreakable. Armorize? I've heard that this is a defensive saint technique for those with an Earth Saint Force. No other secret technique is capable of such an effect. I didn't think the young lord of the Tianqin clan would be capable of such a saint technique. Is this not the strongest defensive technique the young lord has? I didn't think that this youth would be able to force the young lord to such a state so quickly. If he is able to force the young lord to this degree, then that means this youth is quite strong. Under the heavens, there are surely many types of wonders. I didn't think that this youth would be so strong already. His potential surely will be great. Seeing the young lord's armor, both the spectators and guardians of the Tianqin clan began to murmur among themselves in surprise. The young lord stared gravely at Jian Chen and said sternly, "Your sword is quite fast, and dodging your blows is becoming too tiring for me to continue doing. Since you were able to force me to use my ultimate defense, you are qualified to be my rival. From here on out, I'll use my entire strength. Prepare yourself." Chapter 274. Friends. Through fighting, the young lord stared gravely at Jian Chen and said sternly, "Your sword is quite fast, and dodging your blows is becoming too tiring for me to continue doing. Since you were able to force me to use my ultimate defense, you are qualified to be my rival. From here on out, I'll use my entire strength. Prepare yourself." Brandishing his light wind sword so that the tip of the sword was pointed toward the ground. His eyes stared at the young lord for a moment before saying, "Make your move." The young lord's eyes gained a dangerous gleam of light before he grew serious. Earth Storm. Suddenly, a rich amount of Earth Saint Force flew from his body and instantly transformed the earth and dust around Jian Chen and him into a dust storm 10 meters in circumference. Jian Chen's visibility was limited so that he could only see the Earth Saint Force and not even his hands. Everywhere he turned, he couldn't see more than an inch in front of him. The sight reminded of Jian Chen of being stuck in a quagmire. There was an uncomfortable feeling that seemed as if it was restricting his movements and made him slightly cautious. Could this be a battle skill? What a strange one. Jian Chen muttered to himself. All of a sudden, his eyes flashed once before stabbing forward with his light wind sword. Ding! Following a metallic sound, a sword that was previously hidden in the dust storm was revealed. Knocked away by the force of the light wind sword, the dust storm began to waver before Jian Chen's sword then struck out in quick succession once more. Outside the dust storm, none of the spectators were able to see what was transpiring inside. They could only hear the continuous stream of weapons clashing against each other. The dust storm continued to ravage the area with an erratic pattern that felt as if it would dissipate at any moment. On the other side, the Tianqin clan's guardians all looked with an unwavering gazes at the dust storm. The outstanding young lord of the Tianqin clan versus the foreign youth, just which one of the two was stronger? Some of the guardians had a worried look on their faces as they continued to wait. The genius that was the young lord of the Tianqin clan was their pride and joy. The guardians of the clan definitely did not wish for their pride and joy to be beaten by an even younger youth. Even the young woman that was standing within the carriage couldn't help but stare relentlessly at the two men fight within the dust storm. Despite not knowing just what was happening inside, she knew from the state of the dust storm that her elder brother was not doing well. "Guardian, this disturbance is because of you. When we return back to the compound, you and the rest will be punished," the lady complained to the guardian with a strict tone. Upon hearing those words, the guardians all grew white as they started to panic. The patriarch of the Tianqin clan doted upon the second miss as if she were the favorite daughter. If she were to say some choice words to the patriarch, then there would be a fierce punishment to be had. With that thought, a few of the guardians began to panic before apologizing. "The second miss lesson is just. This is the fault of our guardians. When we return we will receive our punishment in the punishment hall." At that moment, the dust storm shook once more erratically before the dust storm grew faint, revealing the situation inside. Jian Chen stood at the center with his sword in his right hand pointing down toward the ground. 5 meters away from him, the armored young lord stood with his giant sword stabbed into the ground. While there didn't seem to be a difference after fighting since both combatants' clothes were still completely intact, but those with good eyes were able to see that the earthen armor on the young lord was dimmer than before. The flow of earth saint force that had been there before had all but disappeared. Reabsorbing his sword, the young lord smiled at Jian Chen. "Not bad, your strength is quite strong. In this generation, you are the only one who made me feel that a loss was inevitable. I, Qin Shao, accept my defeat." Reabsorbing his own sword, Jian Chen cupped his hands toward the young lord. "The lord is too polite. This battle was a draw, a conclusive outcome is far too early to say." From the words of the young lord, Jian Chen had concluded that he was a straightforward person. A loss is a loss, there is nothing humiliating about it at all. "I, Shao Qin, am not a sore loser." Waving his hand, the young lord spoke with a casual tone about the battle. At this, Jian Chen's opinion of the young changed drastically. He now started to see him in a more respectful light. The young lord cupped his hands in respect. "What might be the name of fellow brother and which teacher have you studied under? With the strength you have at such a young age, there is no way you are a nameless person." Cupping his hands, Jian Chen replied, "The young lord praises too much. This one is named Jian Chen. My master is a nameless hermit within one of the deep mountain ranges." Qin Shao walked up to Jian Chen. His physique was so defined that Jian Chen in comparison seemed very fragile. With the two standing next to each other, the difference was far too clear. Slapping Jian Chen's shoulder, Qin Shao said, "Brother Jian Chen, just call me Qin Shao. That way, it'll sound much better to me. Everyone within my clan calls me that." With that, he stopped speaking for a second before saying, "Brother Jian Chen, you are the first one in a generation to defeat me. I, Qin Shao, truly admire that. Thus, I would like to invite you to my Tianqin clan as a guest. Would you do me the honor?" There was a surprised look on Jian Chen's face as he hesitated for a moment. He hadn't thought that he would suddenly be invited to be the guest of the Tianqin clan. He had only just arrived at Walorant City and so he wasn't familiar with the clan. He had only just learned of the clan not too long ago, and while the young lord seemed to be quite honest and straightforward, with this recent fight, if there was someone within the clan that harbored hard feelings then Jian Chen would be like a sheep walking into the den of a tiger. However, Qin Shao didn't even wait for Jian Chen to make a decision and pulled Jian Chen's shoulder in a friendly manner to walk with him. "Let's go, brother Jian Chen. The moment I first saw you I knew it was fate. Let us go back to the compound and have a chat." The young lady who had been standing there looked at her elder brother who was holding Jian Chen close by as if he was his sworn brother with disbelief. What was even more unbelievable was that this was the first time that she had seen her elder brother treat such a person like a good friend. Seeing how the relationship between the young Lord Qin Shao and Jian Chen changed for the better so quickly, the guardians who had previously looked at the fight looked at each other in disbelief. The one who had wanted to kill Ming Dong looked especially anxious. His face grew worrisome as his face scrunched up. When he had first recklessly tried to cast the blame, he had begun to regret everything. The Tianqin clan was an incredibly influential clan within Walorant City. They could be said to be the #1 clan in the city, and even the lord of the city was of the Tianqin clan as well as being the younger brother of the patriarch. Even though they were the #1 clan in Walorant City, the Tianqin clan's main compound was not in the middle of the city. Instead, they were on the edge of the city in one of the more elegant parts where there was a nice manor house. Around the manor, work had been done so that a stream of river flowed around it with countless of fragrant plants surrounding it as well. The mysterious fragrance was so strong that anyone who smelled it would be instantly awakened from their slumber. Jian Chen and Ming Dong both accepted Qin Zhao's invitation and walked alongside him. On the road, Qin Shao continued to talk with Jian Chen about matters concerning his clan. However, none of which were anything confidential and were anything that anyone living Valorant City could find out. The Tianqin clan already had 400 years of history. Ever since their foundation, they had resided within Valorant City and silently grew. After 400 years, their strength had reached an incredibly strong level beyond anyone's comprehension. Even the young lord of the Tianqin clan, Qin Shao, only knew a thin layer of it. The Tianqin clan had initially been founded by two people, thus the Tianqin clan was separated into two veins. One vein was called the Tian, the other was called the Qin. Both were of equal status and power. They would help each other all for the sake of the betterment of the Tianqin clan. Walking into the compound, Jian Chen continued to look around himself. In his heart, he couldn't help but compare it to his Changyang clan. Noticing that the clan guards were quite strict like his clan, it was still quite different from his Changyang clan in general. Turning his head to his sister, Qin Shao spoke up, "Second sister, since it's been quite long since your return, you should go see father. After so long, father has been worried." The second sister of the Qin family stood quietly behind her elder brother. Both of her bright eyes blinked in a curious manner as she looked at Jian Chen's back. "Yes, I know. Elder brother, please go receive the guest while I go see father." The second sister then walked away with two maids, leaving Jian Chen and her elder brother alone. Within the Tianqin clan's compound, Jian Chen, Ming Dong and Qin Shao sat within his personal compound and talked over some wine and fine food. The aroma of exotic fragrances could be smelled as it tempted everyone's appetite. On the side, there were a few maids pouring wine for the three. "Brother Jian Chen, you are the first person I, Qin Shao, have truly admired. You are the very first person that has beaten me within Valorant City in this generation and forced me to accept my defeat. Come, let us have a toast," Qin Shao said as he raised his cup into the air. Chapter 275, Late Night Ambush. There was a forced smile on Jian Chen's face. He hadn't thought that he and the young lord of the Tianqin clan would become friends so quickly. However, the outspoken and straightforward personality of Qin Shao had made a favorable impression on him. With a polite word, Jian Chen raised his own wine cup and took a single sip. "Brother Jian Chen, your strength is quite strong. In the future when you have time, we must compare notes. Right now, the captain of the guards is the only one capable of fighting me. There aren't many willing to fight with me, and I dare not find Earth Saint Masters to fight with since I would easily be overpowered," Qin Shao explained as he drank from his cup. "Of course, as long as I am here, then I will definitely compare notes with brother Qin Shao." Jian Chen laughed. While Qin Shao was fierce while fighting, right now, he was a pleasant companion to talk to. It was because of this personality of his that made him preferable than to those who were hypocritical. "Brother Jian Chen, I can see that you two are not natives from here. Where might have you two come from?" Qin Shao asked curiously. Jian Chen hesitated before answering. "In all honesty, we came from a distant kingdom to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries. The both of us have traveled many miles and traveled across many kingdoms. It was only today that we arrived at Valorant City to rest. Neither of us thought that such an event like this would happen." Hearing this, Qin Shao stopped for a moment before slapping the table with a smile. "This is quite the coincidence. I didn't think that brother Jian Chen would want to go to Mercenary City for the gathering of the mercenaries. Ha, we are traveling the same way. What, could brother Qin Shao be participating in the gathering of the mercenaries as well?" Jian Chen asked surprised. "Of course, the rewards from the gathering of the mercenaries are quite rich. There is not a single faction on the continent who would not be tempted by them. Our Tianqin clan is no different. This gathering of mercenaries, we are bringing a few members to join forces with me," Qin Shao said excitedly. "Brother Jian Chen, you and I are friends, so you should stay in the Tianqin clan for now. 2 months from now, we can set off for Mercenary City." Hearing this, Jian Chen's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Qin Shao, there's not even half a year until the gathering of the mercenaries begins. With there being thousands of kilometers left until then, along with if we spend 2 months in Walleran City, then there won't be any time for us to get there. Qin Shao laughed. It seems that brother Jian Chen has never heard of a space gate before. Space gate? Jian Chen was confused for a moment as he tried to think of what a space gate was. Then, his face grew joyous as he spoke. Qin Shao, could it be that your Tianqin clan has a space gate? A space gate was something that Jian Chen had seen mentioned in the libraries of the Changyang clan and Kargath Academy. Rumors had it that space gates were mysterious portals that were made of a spatial composition that were rare within the continent. Space gates were something that only Saint Kings could create, and so only the 7 capital cities had a space gate. It was rumored that a space gate was capable of allowing a person to travel thousands of kilometers after crossing to the other side. Space gates were truly one of the most profound mysteries of the world and were the only capable gateway to long-distance traveling. Jian Chen's words caused Qin Shao to laugh bitterly. Brother Jian Chen, you think too highly of our Tianqin clan. How could such a mysterious thing be controlled by our Tianqin clan? Not even our Zhuya kingdom has control of a space gate. However, one of our allied kingdoms is in control of one, thus our Tianqin clan plans on using it to get to Mercenary City. Ah, so it's like that. Jian Chen spoke with clarity. He was excited to hear about the space gate. With one of those, he would be able to reach Mercenary City without trouble. Right now, Jian Chen couldn't help but secretly rejoice about his decision coming to Walleran City. Otherwise, he would have never been able to use the space gate to assist him with his troubles. Although the records of the Tianyuan continent said that only the 7 capital cities had a space gate, that was only on the surface. Secretly, there were many more space gates hidden throughout the continent with no one being able to accurately locate them. Within the study room of the Tianqin clan. What? Shao Er has brought an outsider to our Tianqin clan. Troublesome, how truly troublesome. Our Tianqin clan isn't some place that just anyone can enter. An expensively dressed middle-aged man spoke out angrily as he sat on his chair. The man was over 40 years old with an air of power belonging to that of an elder. His words carried about a stressed tone as his eyes flickered with a bright glow. On the other side of the middle-aged man stood a white-robed figure. Her face was covered behind a veil. It was the second miss of the Tianqin clan. Father, eldest brother's personality is rather straightforward, but this time the person he brought back with him is not a simple person. While this person is quite young, his strength is tremendous. Even eldest brother isn't a match for him and left your daughter stunned. Eldest brother even readily announced his loss and spoke of his respect for him. From the eyes of your daughter, this is the first time I've ever eldest brother in such a state. The second miss spoke with a gentle tone that could rival a skylark's. Those who heard her voice would have their hearts skip a beat. Ah, so it's like that. It would appear that I must go and see this person to understand what he is like for him to be someone that Shao Er would respect. The middle-aged man murmured. All of his previous anger had evaporated suddenly. Within Qin Zhao's residence, Jian Chen, Ming Dong and Qin Shao all laughed and chatted among each other as they ate and drank. With Qin Xia's straightforward personality, their friendship couldn't help but deepen by quite a bit. Shao Er, you are usually so quiet every day. Just what has happened to cause you to become so loud? A voice called out over the sounds of their laughter. With that, an expensively dressed middle-aged man walked into the compound with a casual stride. Father, why have you come today? Qin Shao shot up from his chair in surprise. The man's eyes looked at both Ming Dong and Jian Chen for a moment before laughing. I haven't been here for some time, so your father decided to visit you. Then looking at the 2 others, he said, Shao Er, why don't you introduce your 2 friends to your father? Father, let me introduce you to my companions then. This one is Jian Chen and the other is Ming Dong. Qin Shao laughed as he pointed at the 2. Standing up, both Jian Chen and Ming Dong cupped their hands to the middle-aged man. Jian Chen, pay his respects to the patriarch. I, Ming Dong, pay his respects to the patriarch. The middle-aged man looked at Ming Dong for a moment before then looking at Jian Chen to measure them both. With a brief look of surprise, he nodded his head with a smile. Not bad, you seem to be quite talented men. Where might you two come from? Without waiting for Jian Chen to say anything, Qin Shao immediately spoke up. Father, Jian Chen isn't from our Zhuya kingdom. They are from a faraway kingdom that traveled here so that they could participate in the gathering of the mercenaries. Coincidentally, they came across me in their trip to Walorant City. Ah, so I see. Ha, brother Jian Chen has come from such a long distance away. Seeing how you were able to become friends with Xiao Er so fast, it would appear your meeting was by fate. Qin Shao, your father still has some matters to attend to, treat your guests well in my absence. The man spoke in an easygoing manner as if he was a compassionate father and did not have the air of a patriarch. After that, the man had left the compound, leaving the three of them alone. Afterward, because of the matter with the space gate, Jian Chen and Ming Dong both accepted Qin Zhao's invitation to stay at the Tianqin clan. Because of the space gate, they would be able to get to Mercenary City without embarking on a long journey. That night, Jian Chen and Ming Dong stayed within a compound of their own that was relatively isolated where even the patrolmen rarely went to. Later on in the night, Jian Chen held 2 monster cores in his hands as he continued to cultivate on his bed. For the sake of succeeding within the gathering of the mercenaries, Jian Chen had to continue cultivating his strength. His goal was to enter the top 3 and earn a heaven-tier battle skill. Suddenly, Jian Chen's ears twitched as his eyes both flashed open. As he saw 2 lights flash in the night, Jian Chen brought out his light wind sword in an instant and leaped forward with his sword immediately stabbing up through the roof. Crash! With this movement, the tiles on the roof was immediately split apart. A shadowy figure fell from the roof with a whistling sound as it made contact with Jian Chen's sword. A large amount of shock was sent spiraling into Jian Chen's arm, temporarily numbing his hand and causing part of his skin to split open. Jian Chen was shocked at this man's strength. With just a single exchange, he had been dealt an injury he couldn't afford to take. At the very least, this unknown assailant's strength was at the 3rd cycle Earth Saint Master's level. Jian Chen immediately flew backward as he looked at the shadowy figure. Who are you? He demanded. The figure didn't say a word and instead brandished a black iron club to swing at Jian Chen. At Jian Chen's words, the light wind sword in his hand began to glow faintly with an azure and violet light. Within the dark night, this color was very noticeable. In the next moment, the light wind sword flashed silver before striking at the iron club. Ding! The 2 weapons collided once more, causing Jian Chen to stagger backward. This mysterious attacker of his was so strong that he was most likely at the 4th or even 5th cycle Earth Saint Master instead of the 3rd cycle. This wasn't a level that Jian Chen could afford to fight against. Despite all of this, the azure and violet sword chi had managed to cause a large gap within the assailant's iron club. The mysterious figure suddenly froze as he looked at his weapon before speaking out with a hoarse voice, "That's not possible." Horror filled his voice before instantly flying out from the roof and disappearing into the night. Jian Chen looked at the broken hole in his roof without a word as his eyes flashed brightly. Slowly, a thoughtful smile began to creep up on his face. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.